Chapter 236. Among all the cultivators, and Lin's trio was the closest to the location of the explosion. Thankfully, they had the Gundam's protective barriers, so they were able to survive the explosion without much harm. The Ant Queen was situated at the very center of the explosion, and a nuclear bomb had detonated within her body. It would be a miracle if she was still alive. The 16 powerful giant ants were more or less affected by the explosion. They were all enraged by the sight of the Ant Queen being blasted, and they charged toward the cultivators with all their might. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, and Xianyuan Cheng became the targets of everyone, especially Xianyuan Cheng, who had detonated the nuclear bomb. Many of the ants were willing to risk being severely wounded by the other cultivators in order to attack Xianyuan Cheng. Hold on, everyone. The Ant Queen's aura has already been extinguished. The 16 wounded ants are no match for us. If we hold on, we can easily win this battle. Flying Sword God transmitted his voice to everyone. Poor and Lin and the others. Ever since the nuclear bomb detonated, they had never stopped running. If it weren't for the Gundams guarding them, Xianyuan Cheng would most likely have already been torn to shreds by the enraged ants. The situation became a little chaotic. The cultivators circled around Xianyuan Cheng's escape route and engaged in guerrilla warfare, while the ants pounced toward Xianyuan Cheng with no regard for their lives. One of the ants completely disregarded the fact that one of its arms had been severed by Sword Immortal Ming Yuan, and it was going to crush the head of a spirit-nurturing stage cultivator in front of it, just because the latter was blocking Xianyuan Cheng's escape route. The enraged ants made the battle even more intense, and the cultivators suffered more and more casualties. As Lin was fleeing on dog kinesis flight, the interface in his mind suddenly flashed. What the hell is this? He was given a fright by the interface, and he almost fell over. When he calmed himself down, he came to his senses. Could this be the system? That's right, I'm a man with a system. And Lin's eyes lit up. There had been no response from the system for a year, and even when he progressed to the spirit-nurturing intermediate stage, the system only told him to cultivate hard and improve every day. He had almost forgotten about its existence. He excitedly opened the system interface and saw that the special mission was flashing quickly. Detected that the host is being pursued by the ant tribe. Now assigning a special decapitation mission frowny face, host has personally killed 3 soul formation stage ants. Time limit, 2 hours. Mission success. Wind Spirit Art has been upgraded to Tier 2, Wings of Wind. Mission failure. 20 primal stones will be deducted. When Lin saw this mission, his mouth twitched. He really wanted to smash the system. Damn it. You want me to kill 3 soul formation stage ants with my own hands? Didn't they see that he was being chased by a bunch of ants that didn't care about their lives? Now, he actually wanted him to turn around and kill the ant tribe. Did he not want his life anymore? Go to hell. A fierce cry suddenly came from behind Lin. He turned around to see a huge ant enshrouded in black mist. It wielded a black wooden staff and was already within 100 feet of the 3 of them. Several dozen black skulls suddenly surged out of the black wooden staff, and they howled in agony as they swept toward the 3 of them like a tidal wave. Gundam 1, Gundam 2, stop it! In the face of this fearsome attack, Lin summoned his Gundam again. 2 shiny silver robots positioned themselves behind Lin. One of them unleashed an ionic deprivation protective barrier to defend against the black mist, while the other unleashed a gravitational field to force the black mist ant down from the sky before crashing to the ground below. And Lin didn't even have a chance to breathe a sigh of relief upon seeing that the huge ant was being suppressed by the 2 Gundams when another huge ant rushed toward him from afar. This huge ant was completely golden in color, and it was closing in on the 3 of them at an extremely fast speed. You dare to kill my mother? Even if I die, I'll kill you first. The huge ant roared as golden blood gushed forth from its body. One of its arms and both of its legs had already been severed, but it still pointed its other arm at Xianyuan Cheng as its body flew toward him like a sharp golden sword. Xianyuan Cheng knew that he couldn't evade this attack, so he turned around and activated his myriad spirit Tai Chi technique. A circular barrier of air appeared, enshrouding his entire body as the projection of an yin-yang symbol also began to appear behind him. Big Brother Chung. And Lin also stopped and pulled out his evil-slaying sword from his storage ring upon seeing that Xin Yuan Cheng had stopped running. Dying. The huge ant had already reached Xin Yuan Cheng before stabbing toward Xin Yuan Cheng's heart with one hand. Heaven and earth reversal. Xin Yuan Cheng's expression instantly calmed down, and it was as if his body had become one with all things. His long sword rippled like water as he pushed it toward the seemingly invincible arm. Just like that, the huge ant's body was forcibly pushed away from Enlin and Enlin. In the instant that they were separated, Xin Yuan Cheng's sword projection slashed toward its abdomen, and golden blood splattered through the air again. Then, Su Xiaolan's flaming sword slashed down, engulfing the ant's entire body in scorching flames. The huge ant's eyes widened in shock, as if it was still trying to figure out how these three cultivators, who were running like dogs, could still put up any resistance. In the next instant, Enlin had already used his wind sword, and his evil-slaying sword sliced off the huge ant's head in a white arc. Ding dong! 1/3 of the mission completed. Enlin faltered slightly upon hearing this. He had killed one just like that. It seemed like it wasn't impossible to finish off a few half-dead soul formation stage ants. The three of them looked at each other before continuing to flee in unison. Enlin swallowed a spirit blood pill to quickly replenish his energy so that he could use his wind sword again. Soon, another two huge ants broke through the cultivator's line of defense and pounced toward the three of them with no regard for their lives. I'm starting to regret joining in on the fun with you guys. I didn't have to be chased, Su Xiaolan said with a bitter expression. If she hadn't been so suicidal and used fire to burn the Ant Queen's bottom, she wouldn't have been chased by a bunch of soul formation stage ants. Don't panic. There are two more huge ants coming our way. Let's turn the tables and kill them. And Lin's eyes lit up as his battle intent surged. Xin Yuan Cheng and Su Xiaolan both turned to look at him with incredulity on their faces. Su Xiaolan was surprised. You were the one who ran away the fastest earlier. Why are you suddenly so hot-blooded now? Xin Yuan Cheng was elated. Classmate Enlin, you've really impressed me. Enlin was a little dejected. So this was how they thought of him. A huge ant transformed into a ball of fire and hurtled toward Xin Yuan Cheng like a meteorite. As expected, their primary target was Xin Yuan Cheng. And Lin was wondering if all of the ants would chase after Xin Yuan Cheng if they split up. However, there was no point in speculating like this. There was no way he was going to abandon Big Brother Cheng. Don't you dare escape from my sword formation. A loud roar erupted in the distance as a sword of light shot forth at an incredible speed, piercing through the huge ant's flames and puncturing its body. And Lin looked into the distance to find that one of the swordsmanship instructors had made his move. Pwah! A large hole appeared on the huge ant's chest as its momentum was broken. Its body was already riddled with wounds, but it still continued to charge toward Xin Yuan Cheng. However, its speed was getting slower and slower, and Lin attacked. His wind sword technique was as fast as lightning, cleanly decapitating the ant. Ding dong! 2/3 of the mission had been completed. What a great rhythm. Right at this moment, a chill suddenly enveloped Lin's entire body. How? A dragon's roar erupted like a clap of thunder. 4 black dragons charged toward Lin with terrifying auras. A huge ant in black armor stood in the middle of the black dragons with a cold expression on its face. You dare to kill my brother? I'll kill you first. And Lin cursed internally. This ant seemed to have a lot of health points. Chapter 237. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, and Xin Yuan Cheng let loose cries of alarm upon seeing Lin surrounded by the black dragons, and they hurriedly tried to rescue him. And Lin had used the wind sword to escape from Dabai. Now that Dabai saw that its master was in danger, it immediately pounced toward the black dragons. In the distance, its teacher had just unleashed a sword technique, and he was still recovering his energy, so there was no time for him to unleash another attack. Su Xiaolan and the others were still quite a distance away, so there was no time for them to rescue him. At this moment, Lin had no reinforcements, and he had to face the attack of a soul formation stage ant head-on. Although the soul formation stage ant was severely wounded, it clearly still had the ability to fight. The 4 black dragons it controlled circled around its body, sealing off all of Lin's escape routes, and they charged toward him with a terrifying aura. F***ck it. I can only fight. A vicious expression appeared on Lin's face, and bursts of black energy suddenly erupted from his body as his aura soared explosively. Origin energy of the netherworld. Second sword strike. Shadow Tiger. Su Xiaolan, Xianyuan Cheng, Dabai, and the black-armored ant were not far away from Lin, and they all felt heaven and earth darken as everything fell silent. Within the absolute darkness and silence, Lin appeared from the shadows behind the black-armored ant, and his evil-slaying sword slashed down with a soundless divine might. A black sword projection over 1,000 feet in length tore through the black armor and body of the giant ant, slicing it cleanly in half. Light reappeared, and Lin's silent strike had already disappeared. The 4 black dragons wailed in anguish as they shattered. The black-armored ant's eyes were crimson, and its expression was still frozen in fear as its body plummeted to the ground with blood gushing from its mouth. And Lin's origin energy of the netherworld slowly dissipated, and his entire body became extremely feeble. His body also began to plummet toward the ground. Big brother and woof. Dabai caught the falling Lin in a practice manner. Seeing this, Su Xiaolan and Xianyuan Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. I didn't think that classmate Lin would possess such a fearsome mystic technique and sword technique, Xianyuan Cheng exclaimed. Su Xiaolan's expression was relatively indifferent. After all, she had seen it once in the abyss of evil. At this moment, she was more worried about Lin's condition. Are you all right? She flew to Dabai's side and asked with some concern. I'm all right. Let's hurry up and run. Don't let the other giant ants catch up to us. And Lin waved his hand weakly and swallowed another spirit blood pill. At this critical moment, he wouldn't be stingy with using this grade 8 spirit pill. After all, saving his life was more important. Su Xiaolan and Xianyuan Cheng nodded solemnly, protecting Lin as they continued to escape. Ding dong. Congratulations, host, you have completed the mission. You will now advance to the second stage of the Wind Spirit stage. Instantly, countless cultivation method information, observations, and true intent began to flow into his body. The second stage of the Wind Spirit stage allowed him to materialize wings of wind, which would drastically increase his speed for a short period of time. It was both cool and practical, and it was much more useful than the first stage of the Wind Spirit stage. And Lin's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but yell, "Ha! I'm a man with wings from now on." Su Xiaolan and Xianyuan Cheng looked at Lin with a peculiar expression. However, Lin had always been very strange, so they didn't think too much of it and turned their heads away. The battle between the giant ants and the cultivators continued, but the ant tribe was slowly falling into a disadvantageous position. During this period of time, another giant ant broke through the cultivator's defensive line and pounced toward Xianyuan Cheng, but it was slain by the Sword Immortal teacher who had been accompanying them this entire time. Sword of 4 extremes. The flying sword god slashed through the air, and 4 celestial swords materialized in midair, each imbued with the elements of wind, lightning, water, and fire, and they slashed toward the giant blue ant with overwhelming power. Madagascar and Sword Immortal Ming Yuan used the demon sealing formation to trap this powerful giant blue ant. The celestial swords whistled through the air and finally punctured the giant blue ant's sturdy body. The elements of wind, lightning, water, and fire wreaked havoc on its body, as if they were trying to pulverize every inch of its skin. You've killed the Queen Mother, so you can await the vengeance of the tribe leader. All of you will suffer a fate worse than death. The giant blue ant's enraged roar was accompanied by its powerful body, and it was completely reduced to nothingness by the power of the celestial swords, one after another. The giant ants fell. None of them chose to run. All of them chose to fight to the death. In the end, all of the giant ants were dead. Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 smashed the head of the black mist ant before using their dragon's breath to roast its body into charcoal. After scanning the ant and confirming that it had no signs of life, they decided to fly toward their master. Xinyuan Chung received news from his voice transmission talisman that the ant tribe had been wiped out. Only then did he decide to meet up with the flying sword god within Lin and Su Xiaolan under the escort of another Sword Immortal teacher. This was an extremely brutal battle with over half of the total number of casualties. The teachers set up a healing array formation in an emergency, allowing the injured people to recover from their injuries in it. In this operation to kill the Ant Queen, 6 of the Tinsel Formation Stage teachers were injured and 1 died. Among the 100 elite spirit nurturing stage cultivators, over 50 were injured and 8 were killed. This was the first time Lin had seen someone die around him, and he couldn't help but fall silent. Especially when he saw the homeroom teacher arrange their corpses together, he felt an indescribable sense of unease and trepidation in his heart. The corpse of one of his comrades couldn't be found anymore, as it had been burnt to ashes by a huge ant. Another of his comrades didn't even have their heads left, leaving them as headless corpses. That powerful soul formation stage teacher was killed on the spot by the giant blue ant's punch, bursting his heart. And Lin didn't understand. They had clearly used the power of the hydrogen and nuclear bombs to their fullest extent, but they still paid such a heavy price. What would the situation be like if they didn't have the hydrogen and nuclear bombs? And Lin didn't dare to think about it. The Flying Sword God had also envisioned what would happen if the hydrogen and nuclear bombs failed. They would just have to kill the Ant Queen with all their might before retreating. However, the casualties would definitely be much more terrifying. The Flying Sword God placed the corpses of the dead cultivators into his storage ring before heading toward the epicenter of the nuclear explosion with the other teachers. There was still a thick cloud of smoke and dust. Although they weren't afraid of the radiation, they didn't get too close. Instead, they unleashed their divine senses to detect the Ant Queen's original location. Aside from its head, its entire body has been completely melted by the high temperatures, the Flying Sword God suddenly said. A hint of shock appeared on the teachers' faces. They were shocked that the Ant Queen's head was so hard. It was probably harder than all spirit tools in this world. They used immortal spells to drag the Ant Queen's head out. Although only its charred head remained, it was still as huge as a small mountain in the eyes of all the cultivators. The people who were carrying out the decapitation mission of the Ant Queen looked up at the Ant Queen's lifeless head and sighed in their hearts. This battle was finally over. Chapter 238. The Abyss of Evil was a place abandoned by sunlight. Eternal darkness was the main theme here. There was no time or vitality here, only the deepest sense of danger and deathly stillness. No one knew how deep the Abyss of Evil was. It was riddled with countless cracks of various sizes that intersected with one another. None of the people who explored the Abyss of Evil were able to reach the very bottom, and many of them died there. However, in the deepest part of the Abyss of Evil, light suddenly shone. This was an extremely gentle and all-encompassing light. If someone were to look directly at this light, they would feel as if they had fallen into another world. Countless powerful, sinister devils and demons of 9 hells retreated, unable to even muster the courage to look directly at this light. The being that brought light to the Abyss of Evil was a man with long silver hair and a set of cold features in a starry robe. He was one of the most powerful emperors of the Celestial Court, and his full name was Heaven-Culminating Purple Micro-Polaris Emperor. Not only was he proficient in all types of immortal spells, but he also wielded the power of heaven and earth and was well-versed in the tribulations of the universe. Emperor Zue arrived at a certain place in the Abyss of Evil and closed his eyes as he stood there silently. Time slowly passed by, and the abyss fell silent again. "Come out." After an indeterminate period of time, he suddenly spoke. His voice pierced through space and landed somewhere in the darkness. Ripples surged within the darkness. At some point in time, a dreamlike, inky black figure began to appear before Emperor Zwei. It existed between existence and non-existence, and the only thing that gave off a sense of realism was its eyes, which were as bright as stars. Night Monarch, withdraw the bridge, Emperor Zwei said in a cold voice without any trace of politeness. It's not time yet, the being known as the Night Monarch replied in a firm voice. Emperor Zwei looked at the Night Monarch in silence for a moment before continuing, If you keep dragging this out, I'll exterminate the ant tribe. If you really exterminate the ant tribe, will the Celestial Court come and suppress the demons of 9 hells? The Night Monarch shook his head. You wouldn't dare. Boom! Light erupted forth in all directions, engulfing and annihilating all things. Rocks, sinister devils, demons of 9 hells, the atmosphere, everything within the space instantly disappeared, creating a circular space with a radius of over 10,000 feet. At the very center, Emperor Zwei and the Night Monarch were still locked in a stalemate. The Night Monarch's expression did not fluctuate in the slightest as he looked calmly at the man before him. The ant tribe must give birth to a king. This is a necessary sacrifice. Otherwise, the kingdom of the 9 states will pay an even greater price in the future. Emperor Zwei harumphed coldly. There's no need for that. Don't forget that Her Majesty Nuwa is on the side of the Celestial Court. Goddess Nuwa liked humans, and she even created a new world and created new humans. However, she was not a human. Your calamity is the backlash of the entire continent. Given a tribulation of this level, don't you know what choice Mother Nuwa would make? If you can't even make this little sacrifice, how can you struggle in this world? Yidi's words were still unhurried, but every word seemed to pull people into an eternal slumber of darkness. Emperor Zwei closed his eyes, and the all-encompassing light around him also gradually faded. Like an ordinary man, he turned around and left in the darkness. I can't feed the king of the ant tribe with the flesh and blood of humans. Emperor Zwei's body began to disappear into the darkness with this final sentence. Within the abyss of evil, the second wave of ant tribe swarms was destroying the defensive lines set up by the human cultivators. The cloud mist bridges had relatively weak defenses, and after the ant tribe broke through the human cultivators' defensive lines, they engulfed everything in their path. All of the human cultivators were drowned in the ant tide. At the base of the One Valley Immortal sect, a huge chi-gathering spell formation enshrouded all of the cultivators. They stood on a huge mountain and unleashed immortal spells toward the ant tribe down below. This mountain was formed from an intermediate-rank spirit tool, so it was extremely sturdy. Even the teeth of the ant tribe couldn't bite through it. On the ground below, the ant tribe corpses were about to pile up into mountains, and blood flowed like rivers. At the same time, the ant tribe swarms were climbing higher and higher, like a wave that was becoming more and more turbulent. All of the cultivators knew that if this black wave reached the top of the mountain, then all of the cultivators below the spirit-nurturing stage would perish here. Lu Susu gripped her golden glazed longsword and slashed out thin sword projections toward the ant tribe's swarms down below. She was only of the 5th stage Dao body. Even though she was buffed by the chi-gathering spell formation, the sword projections were only able to leave small scratches on the surface of the ant tribe swarms. Even so, she gritted her teeth and continued to slash at the ant tribe swarms. She thought of her family members who had perished in the hands of the ant tribe swarms. She thought of Senior and Lin who had gifted her a longsword. She knew that she couldn't let these people down. She had to give it her all. The black wave was climbing higher and higher. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before she would also perish in the ant tribe swarms. A hint of disappointment appeared on Lu Susu's face. It was a pity that Senior and Lin's sword would be lost. The Cloud Mist Bridge was the largest in the abyss of evil, and the ant tribe swarms here were the most terrifying. Not only were there huge ant tribe swarms crawling on the ground, but there were also flying ants flying toward them from the sky like a swarm of locusts. The Celestial Court's stronghold was like a huge reef in the middle of the Black Wave, defending against the ant tribe swarms. A series of dazzling, immortal spells bombarded the ant tribe swarms, causing the golden city walls to tremble under the onslaught of the ant tribe. The flying ants in the sky were like a swarm of locusts, charging toward the cultivators in a frenzy. Once they broke through the defensive line of immortal spells, they wouldn't hesitate to tear the cultivators on the city walls apart. In a battle like this, even teachers of the soul formation stage would be exhausted and injured. There were simply too many ant tribe cultivators. They weren't perpetual motion machines, and there was bound to be a moment when they had to stop unleashing immortal spells. The thousands of students present felt like they were about to collapse at any moment. They had never encountered a battle like this. Mountains of corpses and seas of blood, rivers of blood that caused the earth to change color. Death loomed over them, and they could be torn apart by the flying ants in the sky if they weren't careful. They couldn't stop, and they didn't dare to. They swallowed essence replenishing pills, drank my dong, and drank treasure kidney to force themselves to continue fighting. Perhaps they would transform during this battle, or perhaps they would fall into an eternal slumber here, at the One Valley Immortal Sect's defensive position. The ant tribe had already reached the mountain. They charged toward the crowd in a frenzy with their bloody mouths wide open. Lu Hu shielded Lu Su Su tightly behind him, but his body was also trembling uncontrollably. However, right at this moment, the frenzied ant tribe army suddenly stopped. Their eyes became blank and unfocused, and they were as still as statues. Rumble, the cultivators didn't stop attacking, and they continued to annihilate the ant tribe army on the mountain. Before they could figure out why the ant tribe army had stopped attacking, the ant tribe army began to move again in the next instant. The cultivators began to panic again, and they unleashed immortal spells toward the ant tribe army down below without any regard for their lives. Something strange happened at this moment. The ant tribe army suddenly didn't look like an army anymore. The army was orderly, and even the battle had a direction and a goal. But now, the ant tribe army had become chaotic and disorderly. They scurried around, trampled, and ran aimlessly in all directions. Some of them even attacked the giant ants around them, and some even ate their own comrades. All the cultivators looked on with their mouths agape at the sight of the ant tribe army collapsing. What's going on? Have they all gone insane? Lu Susu's bright eyes widened in disbelief. The ant tribe was bloodthirsty and gluttonous, but this was the first time she had seen giant ants that would even eat their own comrades. Although there were no giant ants targeting the cultivators on the mountain, they didn't stop attacking in fear that the ant tribe army would suddenly return to order. At the Heavenly Court's base, when everyone saw the disorderly ant tribe army, cheers of joy erupted from the city walls. The Ant Queen was the conscious controller of the ant tribe army on the front lines. There was only one reason why the ant tribe army had fallen into chaos, and that was because the Ant Queen was dead. The mission to decapitate the Ant Queen was a success. At the same time, their large-scale battle against the ant tribe army had officially begun. Chapter 239. The ant tribe fell into chaos and began to scatter aimlessly. Without a collective consciousness, the ant tribe army was like a bunch of loose sand that posed no threat. They couldn't even collectively retreat and could only move based on their primal instincts. It was then that the cultivators began their counterattack. One formidable immortal technique after another bombarded the fleeing giant ants, causing blood and minced meat to splatter about. Soon, the ant tribe's corpses covered the ground at the edge of the abyss of evil. The battle line slowly moved toward the white sand plains. After a while, the wave of ant tribe was completely annihilated by the cultivators. Scorching flames burned the ant tribe's bodies like a fire dragon, circling the abyss of evil, swallowing the last of their existence in this world. Just like that, the ant tribe army of hundreds of thousands was destroyed by the cultivators of the Celestial Court and the Heavenly River State. Although the cultivators had won this battle, they didn't leave. Instead, they fortified their stronghold in preparation for the next battle. As long as the Black Mist Bridge wasn't destroyed, they had no reason to leave. and Lin rode to buy back to the stronghold set up by the Celestial Court. As soon as the 100 or so cultivators returned, the students in the stronghold cheered loudly. This was to congratulate the heroes who had successfully carried out the decapitation mission and infiltrated the enemy's territory. And Lin waved at the students on the Golden City wall and landed among them. Big brother and you guys kill the Ant Queen. Tell me, what did the Ant Queen look like? Miao Tian ran over and grabbed onto Lin's arm as she asked eagerly. She was dressed in a pink dress and seemed to have just taken a shower after the intense battle. Water droplets were still clinging to her short, black hair, making her appear fresh and adorable. Luo, Zipping, Sun Xinglian, and Zhong Yongyan also gathered around with curious expressions. What else could the Ant Queen look like? It looked like an ant. Lin shook his head. The battle was too intense at the time, and I didn't have time to take pictures. Oh, then how did you kill the Ant Queen? The ant tribe's nest is like a dragon's lair and a tiger's den. It must have been difficult to kill it, Zhong Yongyan said as he waved his fan. I threw a hydrogen bomb and a nuclear bomb to kill the Ant Queen, and Lin replied honestly. Pada. Zhong Yongyan's hand trembled, and his fan fell to the ground in fright. Miao Tian, Luo Zipping, Sun Xinglian blinked. Nuclear bombs on ants? And Lin nodded. The Ant Queen is no ordinary ant. She's as big as a mountain, and her eggs are as ferocious as a mudslide. She lays hundreds of giant eggs at once. They did not know the inside story of the decapitation mission, so it was normal for them to be surprised. Now that the decapitation mission was over, and Lin vividly described the details of the battle to them. At the same time, he bragged about how he had slain the Soul Formation giant ant. This was also a way to adjust his mood during the battle. South of the land of white sand, there was a place where there were mountains, trees, clear water, and lush greenery. A white city sat among the mountains, and a rich, vital energy permeated the entire area. This was the holy land of the ant tribe. Countless giant ants with powerful auras that could walk upright were kneeling in worship toward a black egg at the center of the city. A series of complex golden, veined patterns extended into the surroundings. If one looked down from above, they would see that these golden, veined patterns covered the entire ground. This was a gigantic spell formation, and at the center of the spell formation was this black ant egg. Wisps of soul power flowed along the spell formation and converged onto the egg. On the battlefield in the far distance, hundreds of thousands of giant ants had died, and hundreds of thousands of wisps of black soul power flowed along the spell formation and converged here. As for the cultivators who had died to the giant ants, their soul power was white in color, and it also flowed along the spell formation and converged here, merging into this tiny egg. No one knew what kind of existence was being nurtured within this egg, but the ant tribe referred to it as the king. Tribe leader, the two ant queens have already begun to move toward the abyss of evil, with over 1 million ant soldiers following them. A huge white ant half knelt on the ground as it reported respectfully to the giant ant before it. The giant ant referred to as the tribe leader was as thin as a wooden pole, and it held a crimson staff in its hand. Its aura was as vast as the sea, striking the onlookers with the urge to submit to it. It merely nodded in response to the giant white ant's report, as if it didn't take it to heart. Go. As long as it's a battle against the humans, it doesn't matter how many soldiers we send. The tribe leader looked at the huge black egg with a solemn expression. We must use sacrifices to welcome the arrival of the king. However, heaven and earth instantly fell silent as soon as its voice fell. A boundless divine might descended from the sky. You don't have a right to use the sacrifices of the humans. The voice was like a bolt of divine thunder, and it was imbued with supreme might as it exploded between heaven and earth. Many of the powerful giant ants were shocked and enraged by this voice, and they all knelt down in fear as their bodies trembled uncontrollably. This was a kind of king's prestige that reigned supreme in the heavens and earth. It was a true god. Emperor Ziwei, what are you doing here? The ant tribe leader's expression finally shifted as he looked up at the silver-haired man standing proudly in the sky. Emperor Zhui made a series of hand seals, and his eyes glowed with a dazzling light. A sparkling starlight flew from his fingertips before falling toward the huge black egg. "I'm here to teach you a lesson. You dare?" The ant tribe leader's expression shifted drastically as he roared with rage. The starlight fell into the center of the spell formation, and heaven and earth dimmed. Only the light of the purple star became the dominant hue of all things. The earth tremored, and the golden vein patterns were disintegrated by the purple starlight. The huge spell formation that encompassed the entire realm of white sand completely crumbled at this moment. The ant tribe leader's eyes widened as his body trembled uncontrollably. "Emperor Ziwei, you've gone insane. If you do this, the king won't be born, and more humans will die in the future. The citizens of the Kingdom of the Nine States will only choose to die in battle, not die in vain." Emperor Ziwei clasped his hands behind his back before departing with this final sentence. None of the ant tribe powerful beings dared to stand in his way as he left. In the deepest part of the abyss of evil, within the chaotic darkness, a faint sigh traveled over with a hint of exasperation and emotion. So be it, within the abyss of evil. The black fog bridge was like a floating cloud in the sky, gradually disappearing. All of the cultivators from the various sects were dumbstruck by the scenes unfolding before their eyes. At the Celestial Court base, all of the students and teachers also stared at the scenes unfolding before their eyes with different expressions. Some were shocked, some were confused, some were excited. It wasn't until Emperor Ziwei's message arrived from Sword Immortal Ling Zhao's voice transmission talisman that a sense of joy welled up in everyone's heart, and they even began to cheer. The Black Mist Bridge had completely collapsed, and the Ant Tribe's plan had come to an end. They had succeeded. All of their tense nerves could finally relax. Many students collapsed to the ground with bloodshot eyes, but some of them were chortling with glee. They had won this battle. Among these students, some had already left for good, but most of them had experienced the most important transformation in their lives during this battle. This special defensive battle was recorded in the history of Xiaoxian United University. Of the 10,000 students and 100 teachers who had participated in the battle, 376 students and 2 teachers had perished in this battle. This was not a very eye-catching statistic among all of the major events in the history of the university, so it didn't attract much attention. However, this year's extraordinary event was only just beginning. Chapter 240. In the One Valley Immortal Sex camp, Lu Susu stared blankly at the white desert in the distance. There was a white bandage wrapped around her abdomen, and a certain part of the bandage was dyed red, like a blossoming plum blossom. She had been accidentally stabbed by a giant ant when she stepped onto the white desert in pursuit of the ant tribe. Now that the Black Mist Bridge had been destroyed, the Celestial Court had sent word that the battle was over. She and her father would probably have to leave this place soon. Maple City was already a dead city, and they probably wouldn't be going back anytime soon. Where should they go? After successfully defeating the Ant Tribe army, she and her father had avenged their family. Their hearts were at peace, but they didn't know what to do next. She gripped the long sword in her hand tightly, and her pale little face was filled with melancholy and bewilderment. After a long while, a figure flew over from the sky. Lu Susu looked up, and her entire body trembled. The melancholy on her face suddenly disappeared as she exclaimed, "Senior Enlin." "Hi, Lu Susu." Enlin's expression was still as easygoing as ever. Lu Susu saw that there was an extremely beautiful woman standing beside him. This woman had a refined and noble air about her that inspired awe and veneration. "Haha, Enlin, you're a senior now?" The woman poked Enlin's back with a smile that was as affectionate as a girl next door. "Ahem, I'll give you some face," Enlin said in a low voice. "This is my friend Su Xiaolan, and this is Lu Susu, whom I met in Maple City." "Hello, Senior Su Xiaolan." Lu Susu greeted with an obedient and respectful expression. Su Xiaolan didn't think she would become a senior too. She was taken aback for a moment before nodding and greeting. Hello, Lu Susu. And Lin noticed that Lu Susu's abdomen was injured and immediately handed a spirit blood pill to her. Take this and eat it. It's all right, Senior and Lin. My wound has been bandaged and I'll be fine in a few days. If I tell you to eat, just eat. Lu Susu held the pill in her hands as she gazed at the man in front of her. Seeing the serious expression on the man's face, she bit her lip and swallowed the pill as she was told. Where's your father? He's in the refining room of the camp. He said that he's going to forge a set of armor. Oh. And Lin nodded and smiled. The battle is over. What do you plan to do next? Lu Susu lowered her head and shook her head. I haven't decided yet. Your family and sect are gone. Why don't you join the One Valley Immortal sect? And Lin suggested while stroking his chin. Lu Susu's eyes widened. But my father's and my aptitude. It's fine, we'll go through the back door. And Lin interrupted. Lu Susu Su Xiaolan. Thus they found Elder Ji Yanling of the One Valley Immortal sect. Meeting again after a year, Ji Yanling had matured quite a bit. Although her body was still a bit frail, the determination and clarity in her eyes gave one a sense of security. She was ecstatic to see Lin and Su Xiaolan again. They were comrades who had gone through thick and thin together in the abyss of evil, so they chatted about recent events with one another. And Lin suggested that Lu Susu and Lu, who joined the One Valley Immortal sect, and Ji Yanling agreed without even thinking about it. She had opened the back door without any hesitation. Lu Susu was so scared that tears welled up in her eyes, and she immediately bowed to express her gratitude. She didn't know who to thank, but she just had to thank each of the seniors. Ji Yanling was still wearing the crystal that had already dimmed. She had chosen to remember some things, and this was actually quite a good thing. And Lin could tell from their conversation that she had already pulled herself together, which was exactly what Wang Lu wanted to see. After staying together for a while, Lin and the others set off to leave. Cultivate hard and improve every day. Lin waved goodbye. Yes, Senior and Lin, I'll do my best. We'll meet again. Lu Susu nodded earnestly. After flying into the sky, Su Xiaolan couldn't help but ask Lin, tell me the truth. Why are you so nice to Lu Susu? Because Big Brother wants to have a harem. Dabai interjected. Bam! Dabai's head was immediately hammered by Lin. Lin thought for a moment before replying, probably because she's the first person in this world to call me senior. On the ground below, Lu Susu stared blankly at Lin's departing figure until it disappeared from her field of vision. The end-of-year examinations had concluded, and Lin had 10 days to recuperate before returning to the Celestial Court. After that was a month of vacation, so he had a lot of free time. The prefectural city of the Heavenly River State was bustling with activity. Lin rode Dabai and strolled leisurely through the streets with Su Xiaolan. Riding dogs was a habit of Lin's, but he was a little embarrassed to see Su Xiaolan with him. He already had a mount, but she was still walking. Xiaolan, why don't you ride on as well? Lin patted Dabai's back. Is it really possible? Su Xiaolan's eyes flashed with anticipation. Lin laughed heartily. Of course. Dabai also wagged its tail to indicate that it had no objections. Su Xiaolan leaped onto Dabai's back with a smile and teased, Dabai, I wanted to ride you for a long time. A sly smile appeared on Dabai's face. Celestial Maiden Xiaolan, I wanted to be ridden by you for a long time, woof. Lin, Su Xiaolan, I just feel like Dabai is a perverted dog. How about I get off? Don't, Dabai is very pure, I promise. Lin defended Dabai's innocence. I only like Qing Hua woof. Dabai tried to prove his innocence. Su Xiaolan pursed her lips. She was naturally not going to believe in Lin and Dabai's bullsh *T, but she didn't choose to get off either. Instead, she followed along with Dabai. Just like that, the two of them rode on the giant dog and traveled slowly through the market. Su Xiaolan first pulled on Dabai's fur with both of her hands. Later, she felt that it was inappropriate, so she pulled on the corner of Lin's shirt with her jade-like hands. Lin was in high spirits, as he said. I used to love reading martial arts novels. I yearned for those heroes who could ride on horses with beautiful women and travel the world. I also dreamed that one day I could do such things too. Now my dream has come true. Although it's riding on a dog, which is a bit low class. But the beautiful woman has become a fairy, and the level has returned. Dabai was immediately displeased upon hearing that. He scolded angrily, "Woof, that's too much. You're abandoning your brothers just to chase after girls?" Su Xiaolan didn't respond. She only smiled lightly. Her beautiful face was slightly raised, and her eyes were slightly closed. She seemed to be enjoying the warm sunlight and this leisurely feeling. The little hand that was holding on to the corner of Lin's shirt tightened unknowingly. The mighty and cute giant dog, as well as the handsome man and beautiful woman riding on it, became a unique scenery on the bustling street. For Lin and Su Xiaolan, who were riding on the dog, this beautiful and bustling city was also a unique scenery worthy of commemoration. It wouldn't disappear with the passage of time. Chapter 241. Numerous white sun flame flowers bloomed in the sky, decorating the sky with a riot of colors. The news of the ant tribe army's destruction and the destruction of the Black Mist Bridge had already spread far and wide. The residents of the Heavenly River State's prefectural city were overjoyed, and the prefectural city became lively. Lin and Su Xiaolan wandered through the bustling streets and ate a lot of delicious local food. They even packed a lot of food into their storage rings so that they could slowly eat them when they were craving for food in the future. Soon, the two of them arrived in front of a majestic pavilion. It had white bricks and golden tiles, and immortal clouds swirled around it. It was as if a ferocious tiger was entrenched in the prefectural city. The signboard above the pavilion had the words "Golden Pagoda" engraved on it. Lin's eyes lit up. "I heard that the Golden Pagoda is one of the best treasure pavilions in the Heavenly River State. There are countless natural treasures and divine weapons inside." Su Xiaolan smiled. "You already have great weapons like the evil-slaying sword and the realm-piercing nail, and you've also obtained many natural treasures. Why are you still interested in this treasure pavilion?" Actually, I don't want to buy anything. It's just that I have too many treasures, so I want to resell them. For example, that pile of rare tool, refinement materials. I don't know how to refine tools, so I have no use for them. There's also a pile of natural treasures, but I don't know how to refine pills, so I have no use for them. There's also a high-rank spirit tool, 2 middle-rank spirit tools, 9 elementary-rank spirit tools, and a bunch of random things in the Heavenly Cloud Palace's Grand Elder storage ring. It's more comfortable to exchange them for spirit stones. And Lin looked at the things he had no use for with disdain. Meanwhile, Su Xiaolan's lips twitched slightly. She felt that it was very tiring to talk to this kind of person. It was as if she had become a pauper. The two of them got off the Dabai and walked into the Golden Pagoda. They had to pay an entrance fee of 200 spirit stones to enter. This prevented many people who were simply here to watch the show. Those who could enter usually had a certain level of status. "Fellow Taoists, I'm Huang Shi, a shopping guide here. May I know what you'd like to buy?" A refined young man walked over. When he saw Su Xiaolan, a trace of envy flashed through his eyes, but his expression quickly returned to normal, and he cupped his hands respectfully to the two of them. And Lin waved his hand and said, "Oh, I'm not buying anything for now. I want to sell something here." Huang Shi sized up Lin. His aura was ordinary, so his cultivation level shouldn't be high. He was wearing plain white clothes and didn't have any valuable accessories on him. After a brief analysis, Huang Shi couldn't help but cup his hands and remind Lin, although Golden Pagoda accepts treasures at a fair price, we only accept tools that are mid-grade magic tools and above. As for medicinal pills and natural treasures, we only accept spirit grade and above. We don't accept items that are too low grade. And Lin said, "Oh, I don't have a magic weapon." Huang Shi frowned slightly. "That's two." And Lin said, "I'll sell these spiritual weapons first." Huang Shi. More than 10 spirit artifacts? Even a medium-sized immortal cultivation sect wouldn't have that much money even if they searched through the entire sect. Huang Shi's face twitched slightly. He tried his best to remain calm and said, "All right, fellow Taoist, please follow me." Although Lin didn't look like a rich person, Huang Shi was still very professional. He forcefully suppressed his annoyed mood and led the way. He had already thought it through. If Lin dared to trick him, He would definitely beat up Enlin so badly that even his mother wouldn't be able to recognize him. Huangshi led Enlin and Su Xiaolan into an elegant room and introduced them to the two old men. Fellow Taoist Enlin, these are our Golden Pagoda's treasure appraisers, He Mu and Lu Hua. Both He Mu and Lu Hua looked like white-haired old men. Their eyes were deep and spirited, and they gave off a feeling that they had seen the vicissitudes of the world and were extremely experienced. Their appearances aren't bad, and Lin secretly praised them in his heart. Little friend, are you planning to sell spiritual weapons? Heimu looked at Enlin. From his appearance and temperament, he could tell that Enlin was very young. It was rare for this kind of person to have good treasures. Thus, there was a hint of doubt in Heimu's voice. Enlin knew that these two elderly men were quite renowned in the prefectures of the Heavenly River State, and that they were fair and trustworthy people. Thus, he didn't take any precautions and tossed out all 12 spirit tools at once. The fluctuations of the spiritual weapons instantly filled the entire space. They flickered with dazzling light, and their materials were extremely gorgeous. Heimu and Lu Hua both took a deep breath and widened their eyes as they stared at the tools that were casually piled on the ground. Without a doubt, these were all spiritual weapons. Moreover, their quality wasn't low. There was also a look of shock on Huangshi's face. Even though he had mentally prepared himself, he was still given a fright when he saw Enlin toss out so many spirit tools from his storage ring as if they were rocks. Oh, I don't want these artifact refining materials, as well as the natural treasures. Anyway, I don't know how to refine pills or artifacts. As he spoke, Enlin continued to toss out the items from his storage ring. Piles of artifact refining materials were tossed out like scrap metal, and the natural treasures were piled together like Dubai's vegetables. They emitted a strong fluctuation of spiritual items. Heimu and Lu Hua looked at each other and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Could this be a King crown prince, or the successor of one of the four great sects who took things too hard and came to sell his family's property? The corner of Huangshi's mouth twitched. Luckily, he didn't say any contemptuous words earlier. Otherwise, even his face would have been slapped swollen. I'll sell these for now. Calculate how much it's worth. And Lin clapped his hands and looked as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. He even let out a light sigh of relief. When Huangshi saw Enlin's expression, his chest tightened. He really wanted to roar in anger. What's with that look of disdain? Will these treasures bite you? As expected, Heimu and Lu Hua were professionals. They quickly got into the zone and started to take inventory of the treasures. They could tell the pros and cons of each treasure, judge its quality, and state the price to purchase it. If Enlin wasn't satisfied with the price, he could choose not to sell. Golden Pagoda had several thousand years of history in Heavenly River State, so its reputation went without saying. Moreover, these two old men had sharp eyes and were experienced. They could write an 800-word essay about a treasure, and they could even describe it in an eloquent manner. Just like that, after a long time, the price was announced. It was a total of 3,050,000 spirit stones. And Lin nodded with a calm expression as he stowed the 305 vital stones into his storage ring. In addition to the 4,200,000 spirit stones from before, he now had a total of 7,250,000 spirit stones. This property, he didn't want to say anything else. To him, spirit stones were just numbers. Thus, he casually gave Huangshi another 100 spirit stones. There was no special reason for this. He was just happy. So he gave him a tip. Huangshi's body swayed as he held the 100 spirit stones, and the corner of his mouth twitched. Damn it, this is too stingy. Aren't you a nouveau riche? Su Xiaolan's mouth twitched. She was all too familiar with this look on Enlin's face. His next step would probably be to wave his sleeves and leave. Sure enough, Enlin glanced at Su Xiaolan and said with a faint smile, "Let's go." After Heimu and Lu Hua found out that Enlin was a super nouveau riche, they looked at each other with tacit understanding. There were some things that they had to do according to the rules, but there were some things that they could use to generate additional income. Lu Hua looked at Enlin, who was about to leave, and asked, "Fellow Cultivator Enlin, please wait. Are you interested in taking a look at the ancient artifacts that Golden Pagoda has collected? And Lin's footsteps paused, and he curiously asked, "What's so interesting about the ancient artifacts?" Lu smiled mysteriously. He. If you're fated with those ancient artifacts, you can even take them away, really?" And Lin's eyes lit up. He didn't expect that Golden Pagoda would actually have this kind of activity, and his interest was instantly piqued. One had to know that the ancient artifacts in the Kingdom of the Nine States weren't just objects for display. Rather, they were objects that contained ancient energy fluctuations. Some of them contained mysterious cultivation methods, some had some special abilities, and some even hid some shocking secrets. It could be said that they were all very valuable things. "Fellow Cultivator and Lin, please follow me." Lu smiled faintly and led the way. And Lin nodded and followed behind Lu Hua expectantly. Su Xiaolan frowned slightly, but she didn't say anything. He Mu and Huang sure calmly followed behind the two of them. However, they were inwardly overjoyed. This fat fish had finally taken a bait. Chapter 242. Under Lu Hua's guidance, and Lin and Su Xiaolan arrived at a place called the Heavenly Artifact Divine Altar. On the ancient stone altar, artifacts were floating in the air, shrouded in white light. A few luxuriously dressed cultivators were standing on the stone altar and looking at the artifacts. Their expressions were either contemplative or exploratory. Our Golden Pagoda has a history of several thousand years. Up until now, we have only collected 35 ancient artifacts. Every artifact here is priceless, and they are all waiting for their fated owners, Lu Hua explained with a smile. And Lin looked at the artifacts floating in the air. He was quite excited and started to walk toward the stone altar. Right at this moment, a beautiful woman in a red Taoist robe who possessed a noble bearing and a gorgeous appearance spoke abruptly. "Brother Zhong, I want to refine and absorb this treasure." An elder on the stone altar nodded. He used a special technique to open the white light and handed the artifact to the red-robed woman. "That elder is the guardian of our artifact. His name is Old Zhong. That woman is the second princess of the Flaming River Imperial family of the Heavenly River State, Yin Meng," Lu Hua introduced. And Lin was slightly surprised. The Flaming River Imperial family was one of the 9 sovereigns. He didn't expect that a member of the Imperial family would also come here to try their luck. The ancient artifact that Yin Meng chose was a simple and unadorned golden shuttle. She tried her best to refine this golden shuttle, but it didn't react at all. Only that ancient energy continued to create faint ripples in the air. Lu smiled and said, "To be called an ancient artifact, it must be an artifact with a spirit. It will only choose the owner that understands it the most. Using brute force to refine, it will have the opposite effect. If we erase the artifact's spirit, it will directly become useless. In any case, it still depends on fate." "What rubbish is this?" Yin Ming put down the golden shuttle unhappily. Then, she took out a primordial stone from her storage ring and handed it to Old Zhong. Then, she continued to choose among the ancient artifacts. Seeing this, Lu Hua shook his head. Then, he turned to look at Lin and smiled. "Lin, do you want to give it a try? As long as you pay a primeval stone, you can choose any of the relics to refine." Lin nodded. 10,000 spirit stones per attempt was not a lot of money to him with his current wealth. The key was still the success rate. Lu Hua looked at Lin with an indifferent expression, but in his heart, he was happily thinking about how much this fat fish would cost. Only the truly wealthy could enter this place. At the same time, it was also a slaughterhouse for the wealthy. It would be best if Lin was a fool with a lot of money and tried all 35 ancient artifacts at once. That way, Golden Pagoda would have an income of 350,000 spirit stones. He would also receive a commission of 35,000 spirit stones. Just thinking about it made him feel elated. Lin, just try it once or twice. Don't waste your money. Su Xiaolan was afraid that Lin would go overboard with his money, so she began to remind him through voice transmission. "Don't worry, I'll try the difficulty first." Lin nodded and gave Old Zhong a primeval stone. Then, he started to walk toward the floating ancient artifacts. Including Lin, there were only 3 people choosing the ancient artifacts on the stone altar. Apart from Yin Ming, there was also a middle-aged man with purple bee skin wrapped around his body. He was also seriously examining the ancient artifacts in the air. And Lin looked through the white halo and saw the artifacts inside. The first artifact was an ancient book. He thought about it. Although knowledge could change one's fate, if he couldn't understand the ancient words and couldn't decipher them, then wouldn't his efforts be in vain? Thus, he chose to ignore this. Therefore, he looked at the second circle of light. It was an ancient sword. Yes, he already had a sword, so he skipped over it. The third, the fourth, he looked at them one by one and skipped over them one by one. He definitely had to choose an artifact that would make his heart palpitate. Falling in love with an ancient artifact at first sight would be the perfect start. Just like that, he saw a jade pendant. This jade pendant was sky blue in color. Even though it had been through the passage of time, it still emitted a dreamy luster. Looking at it made one feel as if they were looking at the sea. And Lin pointed at this jade pendant and said in a clear voice, "Old Zhong, I want to refine this artifact. Old Zhong, I want to refine this artifact." Almost at the same time, a coquettish voice sounded, and Lin was startled. He looked to his side and saw Yin Meng, who was also in a daze. His good upbringing and the concept of ladies first allowed Lin to react quickly. He hurriedly shouted, "Old Zhong, I said it first. Old Zhong, I said it first." The woman's voice sounded almost at the same time. Old Zhong. The two of them were stunned again. They looked at each other, and there seemed to be sparks in their eyes. Seeing the two of them opposing each other, Lu Hua and He Mu were also shocked. They never imagined that someone would fight to give them money. Yin Ming puffed out her large chest and sneered. "Who are you? Don't you understand the principle of first come, first served? I've been choosing here for so long. You're a newcomer. Don't you know to give way? It's up to you. I'll let you go first. Anyway, it's useless for you to choose." And Lin thought about it. There was no meaning in going against the princess of the royal family. He decided to be merciful and bear with it for once. "You." Yin Ming was so angry that her large chest shook again. "I must take this jade pendant back today. I'll make you regret it." Yin Ming angrily took the blue jade pendant from Old Zhong and began to refine it. For this refinement, she had unleashed a variety of techniques, including gentle techniques, brutal techniques, sacrificial techniques, spell formation activation techniques. And Lin's eyes widened in amazement as he watched on. However, it was of no use. After a long time, the blue jade pendant was still the same. There was no reaction. Yin Ming was in despair. She let go of the jade pendant dejectedly. It's my turn." And Lin excitedly picked up the jade pendant. Yin Ming glanced at Lin and sneered. "Why are you so excited? Even I can't refine it. Don't tell me you want to refine it. Are you living in a dream?" And Lin ignored this crazy person. He held the jade pendant and began to study it seriously. He first used the traditional method to refine it. Sure enough, there was no reaction at all. Yin Ming laughed heartily. She didn't continue to pick through the ancient artifacts, and she watched on as Lin continued to work hard. Divine inspection technique. And Lin's eyes turned snowy white. He touched the jade pendant with his finger, and countless pieces of information began to flow into his mind. Heart of the ocean. Refined from the heart of the West Seas, High Priest. It has the power to command the beasts of the West Sea. The flaw is that the spiritual object has lost its spiritual nature over time. Its energy circulation is blocked and dried up. It needs to be refined with blood essence and a water-type living creature cultivation technique to repair the flaw. The information was so detailed. And Lin was stunned. Was this still the F*King divine inspection technique that only knew whether it tasted good or not? Since when was the divine inspection technique so reliable? He suppressed his confusion and bit his finger. He dripped a drop of blood essence onto the blue jade pendant. At the same time, he activated a water-type living creature cultivation technique. Yin Ming was stunned at first when she saw Lin's actions. Then she sneered. "Using blood essence to recognize you as its owner? Do you think you're signing a contract with a beast pet? Don't you think you're stupid? Aren't you embarrassed?" However, Just as Yin Ming finished speaking, the jade pendant in Lin's hand suddenly glowed with a blue light. An aura as vast as the sea, carrying with it an ancient charm, surged through the entire space. And Lin felt that the jade pendant in his hand had a mysterious connection with him. It was a telepathic connection. The jade pendant was recognizing him as its owner. Yin Ming's eyes widened. Her small mouth that was laughing just now was so wide that it could eat an entire apple. He Mu, Lu Hua, and Huang Shi were also rooted to the spot. They stared at the jade pendant in Lin's hand. What's going on? Old Zhong's body trembled as he stared at the scene in front of him. Ding! The jade pendant let out a crisp sound. It was a carefree, light, and joyful emotion. Immediately afterward, it flew around in Lin happily and finally nestled tightly against his heart. Seeing this, even an idiot would know that the jade pendant had really recognized him as its owner. Chapter 243. The blue jade pendant flew back into Lin's hand, exuding a faint coolness. I've successfully refined the heart of the ocean, so it's mine now? Lin asked with a smile. Yin Ming covered her mouth, still in a daze. How is this possible? She muttered. He Mu, Lu Hua, and Huang Shi were still in shock and forgot to speak. That's right, this was too shocking, especially for people like them who knew the inside story. They clearly knew that Golden Pagoda had not had an ancient artifact recognize a master for over 100 years. Now, an ancient artifact actually recognized a master. What were they supposed to do? Su Xiaolan, on the other hand, had a calm expression. After staying by Lin's side for so long, she had seen all kinds of illogical things and developed a strong heart. It's acknowledged its master, it really has. Mr. Zhong trembled as he made his way toward Lin. Tears welled up in his eyes as he looked at the vibrant jade pendant, and a rare smile appeared on his face. Treasure it well. Don't worry, I will. And Lin nodded and put the blue jade pendant into his storage ring. You actually succeeded? How did you do it? Yin Ming looked at Lin, her face still filled with shock. And Lin laughed heartily. I was just messing around. I just treated the ancient artifact as a beast pet and signed a contract with it. You! Yin Ming was so angry that her chest felt stuffy. Her chest was already big to begin with, but now it felt even more stuffy. And Lin didn't try to argue with her anymore. He gave Mr. Zhong a vital stone and continued to choose. Hey, you're still doing it? You just got lucky once. Don't you understand the principle of stopping when you're ahead? Yin Ming said angrily. And Lin ignored this woman who only knew how to shoot her mouth off and chose a scroll. This scroll looked very impressive. It was sealed with a mechanism technique. Who knew? There might be something incredible sealed inside. Divine inspection technique. Winter Dragon Tomb Map, recording the burial site of winged dragon Shunin. Using emotion, using a love song to awaken the spirit of the scroll. And Lin was dazed again. Using a song to refine it? This pose was quite unique. He stopped thinking about this and began to sing the love song that he had learned in the Kingdom of the Nine States. At the same time, he continued to refine the scroll in his hand. And Lin's sudden outburst of singing once again shocked everyone present. Everyone stared at Lin in bewilderment. What the F***CK is wrong with him now? Before they could speak, they heard the sound of the mechanism of the scroll turning. Then, the scroll slowly unrolled in front of Lin, then slowly closed, and then intimately nestled next to Lin. Yin Ming's eyes widened, and she was once again dumbstruck. On the other hand, He Mu, Lu Hua, and the rest were breathing rapidly. They felt as if their asthma was about to act up. How could an ancient artifact recognize him as its master just by singing? What kind of trick was this? Did it have to be so terrifying? Haha, then I won't hold back. And Lin laughed heartily as he placed the scroll into his storage ring. Without hesitation, he took out another primary stone and handed it to old Zhong. It had to be said that 10,000 spirit stones for an ancient artifact was quite a good deal again. He Mu and Lu Hua's vision darkened, and they almost fainted. They had initially thought that Lin was a fat fish that could be easily slaughtered. But who would have thought that they had let a wolf into the house? He was a F*** king robber. 10,000 spirit stones for an ancient artifact. If that wasn't robbing, then what was? And Lin chose a bronze scabbard dagger and activated his divine inspection technique. Shield of Promised Victory, a life-saving artifact forged by Taoist Songju. It gathers the power of the faith of victory and the power of the vow. It has an extremely powerful protective ability. Sealed in the passage of time, it forgets danger and is trapped in peace. Therefore, it turned out that this dagger-like artifact was not used to attack, but to protect. And Lin's eyes lit up as he read the information obtained by his divine inspection technique. A powerful and violent refinement power was released from his hand. A moment later, he tossed the dagger into the air and drew his evil slaying sword. Without hesitation, he slashed at the dagger in the air. "Wait, what are you trying to do?" This time, even Mr. Zhong was startled, and he yelled anxiously. An ancient artifact was extremely precious. How could it be treated so roughly? If it was accidentally damaged, no one would be able to bear the consequences. Go! And Lin's sword had already struck the dagger. Ding! The sound of jade and stone striking each other suddenly rang out, reverberating throughout the stone altar. A golden shield of light rose up around the dagger, exuding a powerful aura. Seeing this, and Lin did not stop. Instead, he swung his evil-slaying sword even faster. Ding, ding, ding. The two weapons collided, and the sound of sword projections and sparks flew incessantly. Do you acknowledge me as your master or not? If you don't, I'll hack you to death. And Lin roared as he slashed at the dagger furiously. Yin Meng and He Mu's eyes widened. They felt that Lin had really gone mad. Mr. Zhong quickly walked toward Lin, wanting to stop his violent behavior. Right at this moment, the dagger was suddenly unsheathed. In a flash of golden light, it transformed into a streak of golden light and pierced toward Lin. Be careful. Seeing this, Su Xiaolan's expression finally changed drastically. However, Lin seemed to have sensed something and extended 2 fingers. With a crack, his fingers caught the white blade. You need to be taught a lesson. Piss off. Lin spat in disdain. The dagger nodded obediently and flew back into its scabbard. Then it floated happily beside Lin. Mr. Zhong, He Mu, and Luha, Su Xiaolan. Yin Meng's body swayed, and she shook her head repeatedly. It's fake. It's all fake. Huangshu scratched his face with both hands. Heavens, weapons can be refined like this? What did I do wrong? Why did you have to show me this? And Lin ignored everyone's expressions and put away the dagger. He excitedly took out another source stone and handed it to Mr. Zhong. He looked like he was itching to try it out. Mr. Zhong's mouth twitched, and he stared at the source stone in front of him. Fear actually rose in his heart. Yes, the man in front of him terrified him. He used special methods to refine ancient artifacts time and time again with irresistible force. This was really too terrifying. Although it was a good thing that the ancient artifacts weren't covered in dust, he felt that if this man continued to fool around, Golden Pagoda would probably go bankrupt. Just as Mr. Zhong was thinking about how to reject Lin's source stone, the entire space suddenly trembled. Following this, the remaining 32 ancient artifacts suddenly released a powerful ripple that spread out in all directions. That was the power and will of the ancient era. This carnival didn't need to speak to make people understand what they were trying to convey. Yes, everyone present clearly understood the emotions they were trying to express. There was only one sentence, and that was, choose me, choose me, choose me. Just like that, everyone was stupefied. They were all so shocked that they couldn't speak. The master of Golden Pagoda, who had hurried over after sensing the commotion, was also dumbfounded. After seeing fellow Taoist and Lin refine the artifacts to his liking time and time again, after seeing his companions, who had been silent for a long time, meet their soulmates and be taken away, these ancient artifacts finally reached a climax. Thousands of words converged into one sentence. Choose me, choose me, choose me. He Mu and Lu Hua trembled and looked at Lin as if they were looking at a monster. What kind of person had they recruited? If this continued, Golden Pagoda's money tree would be snatched away by Lin. They didn't know whether Golden Pagoda would go bankrupt, but they were definitely going to go bankrupt. Chapter 244. Speaking of which, are you going to accept these primordial stones? And Lin scratched his head and looked at old Zhong, who was in a daze. He pointed at the ancient artifacts on the stone platform and continued, "Hurry up, they can't wait any longer. They really want them." "They want them? You want them even more?" Old Zhong's chest tightened, and he felt like he was about to have a heart attack. He hurriedly turned his pleading gaze toward Pavilion Master Luo, who had just run over. "Pavilion Master Luo, that man named Lin is very good at refining ancient artifacts. He has already taken 3 of them. If this continues, I'm afraid that all the artifacts will be taken away by him." Lu Hua hurriedly transmitted his voice to Pavilion Master Luo. Pavilion Master Luo's heart ached when he heard this. Normally, they might not be able to find even one ancient artifact even after several decades. But now, he had already taken away 3? No, he must be stopped. "Ha ha! I am Golden Pagoda's Pavilion Master, Luo Baiyu. Congratulations to fellow Taoist and Lin for obtaining the ancient artifacts." Pavilion Master Luo walked over with a smile and a gentle expression on his face as he cupped his hands and congratulated Lin. When Lin heard that the boss of this store had arrived, he respectfully returned the greeting. Pavilion Master Luo didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. "Since fellow Taoist and Lin has already obtained a few ancient artifacts, why don't you stop here? To tell you the truth, this activity of selecting ancient artifacts is one of Golden Pagoda's specialties. At the same time, it is also one of our main sources of income. It's a good thing that fellow Taoist and Lin is fated with these treasures, but Golden Pagoda has spent thousands of years to find them here. This is also a kind of hard-won fate. Most importantly, we don't want our source of income to be cut off by others." And Lin blinked. He didn't expect the other party to be so straightforward. Since the other party had shamelessly admitted it, how was he supposed to respond? "You previously said that the ancient artifacts belong to the fated, but now you're going back on your word. Aren't you afraid that I'll spread the news that you're treating it as a money tree?" And Lin thought for a moment and decided to refute. "We can make a new rule. One person can only take away 3 ancient relics at most. I believe that apart from fellow Taoist and Lin, who is a heaven-defying genius, anyone else who can refine one of them would be able to boast about it for 100 years. Naturally, they wouldn't mind this restriction too much." Pavilion Master Luo's tone was still gentle and calm as he continued. "I believe that with this, even if this matter were to spread and Golden Pagoda's reputation would be affected, others would still be able to understand. Of course, this is only a last resort. I still hope that fellow Taoist and Lin can resolve this matter peacefully with us. This way, everyone will be happy." And Lin looked at the elegant middle-aged man in front of him and asked, "How do we settle this peacefully?" 1,000,000 spirit stones. Let's just forget about this matter. Golden Pagoda can only offer this much. Fellow Taoist and Lin, there's no need to haggle," Pavilion Master Luo said with a smile. "All right, deal. Fellow Taoist and Lin is truly a straightforward person. From now on, you're a friend of Golden Pagoda." Just like that, and Lin collected another 1,000,000 spirit stones and swaggered out with Su Xiaolan. He Mu, Lu Hua, and Huang Shi silently watched the back of the man who seemed like a winner in life. Their hearts were in a mess. Pavilion Master Luo rubbed his forehead in pain. He needed to go to the meditation room to calm down so that he could forget about this man named Lin. Princess Yin Meng's face had been slapped resoundingly. She was in no mood to continue choosing the ancient artifacts and left the stone altar. Only the luxuriously dressed, middle-aged man persisted. He dripped his blood on the ancient artifacts and sang to them. He seemed to be having a lot of fun. Of course, the end result was completely useless, and Lin walked out of Golden Pagoda's door and took a deep breath in comfort. Then, he sighed ruefully. I suffered a small loss. I couldn't collect all the ancient artifacts." Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes. "You still have the nerve to say this? My heart aches for Golden Pagoda. They originally wanted to rip you off, but you turned the tables and took away 3 of their family jewels, as well as 1,000,000 spirit stones. I like it when they use their 3 family jewels well, woof. Dabai interrupted with a devilish smile. Su Xiaolan and Lin, where are we going next? Su Xiaolan felt a little awkward and changed the topic. Let's walk around nearby and see if there are places like Silver Pagoda, Ingot Pagoda, or Divine Weapon Shop, and Lin said with bright eyes. The corners of Su Xiaolan's mouth twitched. You want to cause trouble again? Looking for the ancient artifacts? Hee, Xiaolan, you know me well. Excitement flashed in Lin's eyes after he tasted the sweetness. Just like that, and Lin really did go to all the treasure pagodas to see if there was anyone who wanted to rip him off. Unfortunately, Golden Pagoda was already the top treasure pagoda in the Heavenly River State, and it was the only one that could collect ancient artifacts. This disappointed Lin for a long time. He checked his storage ring. There was a high-rank protective spirit tool that Lin Junjun had given him, the Heavenly Spirit Ice Heart, 2 Immortal Pill coupons, the Shield of Promised Victory, the Winter Dragon Tomb Map, the Heart of the Ocean, the Dragon Soul Pill, the Evil Slaying Sword, the Realm-Piercing Nail, and the Starless Sky of Slaughter Formation Disc. They were all good stuff that he couldn't bear to sell. Also, to him, the 8,220,000 Spirit Stones were just numbers. After having so much money, even if I earned 1,000,000 Spirit Stones, I don't feel much joy anymore. And Lin looked up at the sky and sighed with emotion. Su Xiaolan glared at the man beside her, and she felt the urge to beat him up. Oh, right, let's go treasure hunting. And Lin seemed to have thought of something, and he suddenly said, Treasure hunting? Su Xiaolan raised her brows slightly, and she said sarcastically, Does filthy rich and have to worry about not having enough treasures? You have so much money, so if you want a treasure, you can just buy one. And Lin's expression faltered upon hearing this, and he was speechless. Holy F***CK, it makes so much sense. Why do we need to go treasure hunting? What can we buy with so much money? No, don't be led astray. Treasure hunting is for adventure and for opportunities that come along with it. It can't be replaced by dung like spirit stones. Treasure hunting this time is different. It's very exciting. And Lin pulled Su Xiaolan along with him and flew into the sky on his brick. Then he took out a scroll. This was one of the ancient artifacts that he had obtained. Look, he slowly unfurled the scroll as if he were showing off some kind of treasure. Su Xiaolan's eyes glistened, and there was a hint of surprise on her face. This is an artifact that you just snatched from Golden Pagoda, right? It's a map? What do you mean by snatch? I obtained it with my own strength. Lin was displeased. The Winter Dragon Tomb map records the burial site of winged dragon Shunin. This is a good item. You know that dragons have a hobby of collecting treasures. How could their tombs be lacking in treasures? Su Xiaolan smiled and nodded. Then she shook her head. Winged dragon Shunin? That's a return to Void Stage Dragon. Its tomb must be very dangerous. The higher the cultivation base of a being, the more dangerous their tomb was. This was something that everyone knew. This was what it meant to be awesome in life and awesome in death. However, the more powerful a being is, the more precious the inheritance they left behind. Normally, supreme beings have the habit of leaving behind inheritances in their tombs after they die. This isn't something that can be bought with spirit stones. And Lin's eyes lit up as he spoke. His adventurous spirit was already burning. Su Xiaolan stroked her smooth chin and looked at the map. Then, she looked at Lin and asked, Can your Gundams still be used? Of course. They've already been charged. And Lin nodded earnestly. Su Xiaolan clapped her hands together with a dainty smile. All right, then I'll accompany you. Chapter 245. The Winter Dragon Tomb was located in the western part of the Heavenly River State, on the plateau that bordered the Stone Dragon State. And Lin rode on Dabai and flew for 3,000 kilometers before arriving at the plateau that bordered the two states. From the coordinates on the map, it should be here. And Lin pointed to a place surrounded by a few withered trees. Su Xiaolan looked at the destination not far away and said, There's nothing here. Could it be that there's a formation concealing it? And Lin nodded. The map tells me that this is a spatial formation, and those withered trees are the formation flags. I need to move them to open a spatial door and enter the tomb. You can even talk to the map? Su Xiaolan exclaimed. Of course. This thing has a spirit and has recognized its master. We can communicate through our thoughts, and Lin said proudly. Su Xiaolan sighed. Really, anything could become a spirit after living for a long time. And Lin followed the instructions on the map and activated an immortal spell to adjust the positions of the withered trees. After the last withered tree was adjusted, the vital energy of heaven and earth surged wildly. A huge formation appeared on the ground, and rainbow clouds even appeared in the sky. It was an extremely grand sight. TSK. How imposing. It's like a treasure dropped from the heavens. What if it attracts others? And Lin couldn't help but complain. Don't raise flags. Su Xiaolan glared at Lin and warned. And Lin shut his mouth. This thing was really strange. Especially after coming into contact with cultivation, he developed a sense of reverence toward this mysterious karma. Not long after, a white door of light appeared in the center of the formation. It was impossible to see what was inside. Without the permission of the map, you can't enter this door. Hold my hand tightly. Saying this, and Lin grabbed Su Xiaolan's soft little hand and stepped into the spatial door. Su Xiaolan was a little nervous, but she didn't say anything. She did as Lin said. After passing through the door, what greeted their eyes was an independent secret realm. The sky was white, and there was no land. Instead, there were huge rocks floating in the air. On top of each boulder, there was an extremely large palace. Wow, it's so grand. Look at the appearance of this palace. There must be something special about this place. And Lin couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. After all, he was a man who had visited the Greenwood Imperial Palace before. In terms of appearance, these palaces weren't the slightest bit inferior to the palaces in the Greenwood Imperial Palace. Jade pavilions, gold towers, laurel halls, and orchid palaces. They were all extremely gorgeous and emitted a type of classical luxury. Su Xiaolan smiled. There are so many palaces. Which one should we go to first? Let's start from the nearest palace first. We'll do a carpet search and collect all the valuable items. And Lin said with sparkling eyes. He estimated that there were 23 palaces on the floating boulders in the sky. Together with the floating boulders, they formed a specific pattern that looked like a meandering dragon. The palace in the furthest distance emitted a white light. After seeing it, one would have the urge to immediately rush over and check it out. However, Lin was the type of person who would carry out a thorough search, and he insisted on starting with the first palace. Just like that, they stepped onto the first floating boulder. On top of it was a green palace with a plaque that had the words Palace of Spring written on it. What was the most boring occupation? Guards? Although guards didn't have personal freedom, they could at least follow their master everywhere and occasionally help their master show off. Guards? Although guards were trapped in one place, they at least had holidays and could see the colorful world. They could also see different people during work and do all kinds of things to pass the time while guarding the door. In Spring Mail's opinion, the most boring occupation in this world was no other than being a tomb guard. That's right, his current occupation was the most *king boring. Personal freedom? That didn't exist. He was trapped in this independent secret realm every day and couldn't even leave. Holidays? To him, this job could also be considered holiday. He could do whatever he wanted in this palace. As long as he didn't smash, rob, or burn anything, he could do anything. However, it seemed like nothing he did was fun because there was nothing to play with here. He wanted to sing a song, but it seemed like even having a mosquito as his listener was a luxury. How long had he been doing this job? 100 years? 1,000 years? 10,000 years? Spring Mail couldn't remember exactly how long had passed. He only knew that the one thing he regretted the most in his life was choosing to be a tomb guard. Back then, he had really *king lost his mind, which was why he had made that kind of heavenly Tao oath, saying that he would always guard the Winter Dragon tomb until a fated person appeared to inherit his legacy and obtain his freedom. If the heavens could give him a chance and let him stand in front of Shun'in again, he would definitely say 3 words to Shun'in. *CK off. If he had to add a time limit to these 3 words, he hoped that it would be 10,000 years. Spring Male had a feeling that he would have to be a tomb guard for the rest of his life. Today, Spring Male was still sitting on the chair in the Palace of Spring. He was in a daze, napping, and thinking about life. He couldn't leave this palace. He was tired of everything in this palace, including those thick pillars. Today's another boring day. Spring Male murmured. Sigh, let's play rock, paper, scissors. He stretched out his left and right hands. Rock, paper, scissors. Rock appeared in his left hand, while paper appeared in his right hand. Rock, paper, scissors. Scissors appeared in his left hand, while rock appeared in his right hand. Little left, you've lost 2 rounds in a row. You have to work hard. Creak, a sudden sound interrupted Spring Male's game. The door opened, and Spring Male's entire body trembled. It wasn't the wind blowing, nor was it the movement of ghosts. It was the arrival of people. He looked at the 2 figures and saw how dazzling they were under the sunlight. That was the light of dawn. That was salvation. That was the hope of life. Spring Male let out a strange cry and suddenly pounced toward the 2 of them. Fated people. Mountain quaking lightning fist. Divine Phoenix sword slash. Boom. Spring Male was struck by the golden lightning fist and sent flying by the flaming sword slash. He rolled into the distance. It's real. This is real pain. I'm not dreaming. Spring Male was so excited that he laughed heartily. Tears were almost flowing out of his eyes. The people who had barged into the Palace of Spring were none other than Enlin and Su Xiaolan. They looked at each other, and they could see the confusion in each other's eyes. Could it be that this palace guardian, was he a lunatic? Spring Male stood up again. His entire body trembled, and his blood that had been dormant for a long time began to boil. Green trees suddenly appeared around him, and vines extended in all directions as if they were corporeal. This was an extremely powerful domain. Soul formation stage. Enlin and Su Xiaolan both trembled as they stared at Spring Male with rapt attention. They didn't expect to encounter such a powerful enemy right after entering the tomb. How were they supposed to survive now? Welcome to the Palace of Spring, fated ones. My name is Spring Male, and I'm the master of the Palace of Spring. As long as you obtain my approval, you can obtain the pill refinement inheritance of the Palace of Spring. Spring Male laughed heartily, but he had a convincing and dignified air about him. Enlin's lips twitched slightly. Spring Male? Who came up with such a strange name? Why wasn't he called Brother Spring? Then how do we obtain your approval? Su Xiaolan maintained her vigilance and asked. Good question. Spring Male waved his sleeves and continued. First, your pill refinement attainments must reach the spirit gathering stage. Enlin, what stage is the spirit gathering stage? Su Xiaolan, are we guessing again in class? The pill refinement stages are divided into the flame mastery stage, fulfillment stage, spirit gathering stage, creation stage, and pinnacle stage. However, I'm only at the fulfillment stage. Enlin, I only know how to knead mud balls, so I probably can't even be considered to be at the flame mastery stage. Let's just fight him. Su Xiaolan glanced at him. Are you stupid? What's the point of fighting without an inheritance? Just turn around and run. Enlin clapped his hands together. That's right. The 2 of them started to turn around as they spoke. Don't go, Spring Male yelled. Tree vines quickly extended and blocked the entrance. About what I just said, pretend I didn't say anything. Spring Male's eyes were red as he spoke. Enlin was dumbfounded. He looked at Spring Male with a strange expression. Actually, you can receive my inheritance as long as you know how to refine spirit pills, Spring Male said seriously. Enlin, Su Xiaolan, I think I know how to refine spirit pills below the 8th grade. Su Xiaolan smiled sheepishly. Spring Male nodded. He pointed at Su Xiaolan and solemnly said, All right, congratulations to this fated person. You've passed the test and can receive the Palace of Spring's pill refinement inheritance. Enlin, Su Xiaolan. Chapter 246. Is this Spring Male here just to deliver the inheritance? Enlin and Su Xiaolan couldn't help but speculate like this. In reality, their speculations were completely correct. Spring Male, indeed, wanted to deliver the inheritance as soon as possible so that he would be free. To him, and Lin and Su Xiaolan were exuding the light of salvation. Spring Male brought out a scroll with golden symbols flashing on its surface. He handed it to Su Xiaolan. Fated One, you only need to drip a drop of blood essence onto this scroll and inject your vital energy into it. Then, you'll be able to activate Shun Yin's pill refinement inheritance. Of course, after my acknowledgement, you will also need a wisp of winged dragon Shun Yin's aura on this scroll to also acknowledge you. Only then will you be able to completely obtain the inheritance. Su Xiaolan looked at Lin uneasily. The energy fluctuations emanating from this scroll were indeed related to the inheritance. However, she couldn't help but feel uncertain that Spring Male would deliver the inheritance to her so easily. Lin retrieved Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 from his storage ring. He then transmitted his voice to the mini versions of Dabai and Xiao Chou, telling them to be on guard against Spring Male at all times. Only then did he nod at Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan dripped a drop of blood essence onto the scroll and injected vital energy into it. A heart-palpitating roar suddenly erupted from the scroll, and the projection of a golden dragon leaped out from the scroll. Then, it crashed directly into Su Xiaolan's body. Su Xiaolan. And Lin cried out in shock upon seeing this. It's all right, don't panic. Spring Male hurriedly consoled her. Then, he knelt onto the ground, his entire body trembling. It's done. This is the sign of a successful inheritance. Very soon, the invisible chains that bound Spring Male instantly disappeared. He threw his head back and roared with laughter. Tears trickled down from the corners of his eyes. I'm finally free. Ha! Su Xiaolan's eyes lit up. She looked at Lin and said in amazement, this is the real Pill Dao inheritance. The inheritance's comprehension leads directly to the soul creation realm. Only after receiving the complete inheritance did my fulfillment realm show signs of breaking through to the spirit assembly realm. Master Shenin, please accept a bow from your disciple. Su Xiaolan bowed respectfully toward the memorial tablet in the center of the Palace of Spring. After accepting the inheritance, there would be a master-disciple bond. This was the same as in Lin lighting candles for his system every day. After a while, Spring Male's emotions finally stabilized somewhat. He wiped away his tears and said to Lin and Su Xiaolan, I'm also going to leave this place. It's a kind of fate that we've met here, so I'll tell you a few more things. The Palace of Heaven is very dangerous. Although the treasures inside are the most alluring, they're also the most deadly. You are the third batch of cultivators to enter the Winter Dragon Tomb. Although the first two batches of cultivators didn't come here, they all went to the Palace of Heaven. After that, they stayed there forever. After saying this, Spring Male left. He passed through the door of light and completely left this dragon tomb. Lin and Su Xiaolan looked at each other. They knew which Palace of Heaven Spring Male was talking about. When they entered, the first thing they saw wasn't the Palace of Spring that was closest to them, but the palace that was furthest away. That palace emitted a white holy light. A large heaven character floated at the top, symbolizing supreme dignity and glory. It made one yearn to go there immediately and worship it. If it weren't for the fact that Lin firmly carried out his carpet-style search policy, the two of them might really have gone straight to the Palace of Heaven. Let's just go with the flow, and Lin said nervously as he gazed at the Palace of Heaven in the distance. Su Xiaolan nodded. The 23 floating boulders faintly formed a meandering dragon. They were currently at the tail of the dragon, while the Palace of Heaven was the dragon's head. It would be too early for them to search through the palaces one by one. Just like that, they arrived at the Palace of Summer. They saw a golden flaming bird lying lazily on the ground. Welcome, fated ones. My name is Summerbird. This golden flaming bird spoke in a soft and seductive voice. After saying this, it even yawned nonchalantly, and Lin's lips twitched slightly. Speaking of which, did these tomb keepers really name themselves so casually? The flaming bird swept its gaze over the two humans and beasts. It then continued, "Do you want the inheritance of the Tao of Fire?" And Lin, why was it asking so directly? Wasn't it going to fight first before spitting out the inheritance? And Lin calmed himself down before asking, "Can I get it just because I want it? How could there be such a good thing?" Summerbird swept its gaze over everyone. It then said in a slow voice, "How about this? Use your best move to beat me up. I'll give the inheritance to whoever beats me up until I'm satisfied." And Lin, Su Xiaolan, could such a rude request really work? Dabai Xiaoqiu, you guys go first. And Lin suddenly said, seeing that he could beat up the young beast for free, and a soul beast that was of a higher level than him. Dabai was already eager to give it a try. Hearing in Lin's words, he immediately pounced towards Summerbird and gave it a fierce beating. The power of the heavenly wolf was completely activated. The dog's claws contained an extremely powerful force, and it slashed out streaks of sharp edges. Summerbird was beaten up by Dabai. "Use more strength. Io, did you not eat? Are you a male dog or not? Useless male dog. Use more strength." After a long while, Dabai finally stopped, panting heavily. Summerbird still looked dissatisfied. "That's it. Crack." Dabai's heart jerked violently, as if it had been struck by a violent blow. He walked to Lin's side in a daze and fell into self-doubt. "Big brotherin, do you still have more Emperor Snake pills? Give me a few. Although I don't want to admit that I'm useless, but..." Halfway through his sentence, Dabai's eyes became moist, and he started to sob silently. "And Lin, let me do it." The Xiaoqiu unleashed his black flame domain and aggressively walked towards Summerbird. Summerbird's lazy eyes lit up slightly. "Yo, this seems pretty good. It's tasty." Without saying anything else, the Xiaoqiu raised his silver rod and smashed it towards Summerbird. Boom, boom, boom. Energy surged violently, accompanied by Summerbird's pained cries. "Wah, it feels so good. Use more strength. Hit here and here. Move up a bit." The neck too. Summerbird moved its body and took the initiative to receive the Xiaoqiu's silver rod. The golden flames surged violently, as if it was also excited. It wasn't afraid of the Xiaoqiu's black flame at all. After a while, the Xiaoqiu lay on the ground, panting. Summerbird also had a satisfied expression. It twisted its body and murmured, "The strength of the massage is pretty good. It's much stronger than that male dog with kidney deficiency. It's just that this black flame conflicts with my Tao of Fire inheritance. What a pity." Dabai suffered another blow, and tears streamed down his face. Men were most afraid of being told that they were no good by women, and they were even more afraid of being told that they were no good than a certain man. "Let me do it." And Lin was also ready to spring into action. Mountain, quaking lightning fist. "Ayaya." Summerbird chirped delicately. "Wind sword. Io, what kind of sword is this? You're hurting me." Summerbird chirped delicately again, and its expression became even more excited. Even the flames were leaping. After a while, Enlin lay on the ground, panting. Summerbird looked at Enlin coquettishly, licked the golden blood on its shoulder, and said coquettishly, "You're such a good sort of mortal. Why do you need the fire inheritance? But I have to say that you make me very happy. You're much better than that male dog." Dabai's tears flowed endlessly. "Woof, I beg you, can you not always bring me into the conversation? Let me try to." Several fire dragons burst forth from Su Xiaolan's body, dancing along with the sword as it pounced toward Summerbird. Summerbird looked at the fire dragons pouncing toward it, and its eyes lit up. This is the divine phoenix bloodline. Rumble. The flames exploded violently, and Summerbird trembled in the flames. It chirped excitedly, "Ah, so refreshing, such a familiar smell, such a sweet, beautiful, and fierce smell. Make it more fierce." "As you wish." Su Xiaolan shouted softly, and a pair of flame wings bloomed behind her back. Her figure turned into a flaming meteor, and her speed was extremely fast. The sword light enveloped the golden flames and slashed towards Summerbird. "Ah!" Summerbird screamed loudly when it was struck by the sword light, and its entire flaming body fell limply to the ground. It looked at Su Xiaolan with bright eyes and said softly, "Such powerful flames. This summer bird is about to pee in my pants. I like the smell of these flames. You shall be the one, beautiful lady. I shall let you inherit my winter dragon graveyard's path of flames." Chapter 247. Lin, Dabai, and Xiao Chou were all dumbstruck. Never would they have thought that such a masochistic summer bird would be conquered by Su Xiaolan. Where was the three of them going to put their faces? They really wanted to bang their heads against a wall. Summer bird flew in front of Su Xiaolan and breathed out a golden flame seed from its beak. "Close your eyes and focus." Su Xiaolan did as she was told, and the golden flame seed began to merge into her glabella. Boom! The vital energy of heaven and earth suddenly surged. Is it my imagination? I feel like Su Xiaolan's aura has become more powerful, and Lin said as he looked at the slightly furrowed woman. I feel it too. Could it be that accepting an inheritance can increase one's cultivation base? Woof. Dabai was also confused. Summer Bird chuckled. This is because she had an epiphany when accepting the inheritance. She took advantage of this opportunity to cleanse and purify the power of flames in her body, thereby making her flames even purer. To be able to grasp this opportunity so decisively, she really is very talented in the Tao of Flames. Right at this moment, wisps of flames suddenly began to revolve around Su Xiaolan's body. These flames were yellow with a hint of gold, and they exuded an extremely scorching aura. She opened her eyes with an excited expression on her face. I did it. Summerbird nodded. The inheritance is over, so it's time for me to leave. We'll meet again. When we meet again, I hope you guys can put in more effort. After saying this, she spread open her wings, and her body rose into the air as she flew toward the gate of the dragon tomb. And Lin, Dabai, and Xiao Chou returned to their miniature forms, and they were extremely disappointed. If they could, they wanted to turn into a blade of grass. All right, let's go to the other palace," Su Xiaolan said excitedly. Only Su Xiaolan was in high spirits now. The two extremely helpful inheritances had completely stimulated her adventurous spirit. The third palace was called the Palace of Autumn, and Lin and the others nervously pushed open the door and saw a young girl sitting quietly on a straw mat. She had a pretty face and a fiery red dress. An ancient sword rested on her slender legs as she closed her eyes and meditated. And Lin looked at this young lady and felt that she was very cool. She had the demeanor of a master. Facing this kind of master, no one could disturb her. This was a great disrespect. The best way to deal with it was to quietly stand to the side and wait for Grandmaster to find some time. Su Xiaolan was clearly thinking the same thing. She stood silently off to the side with Lin and looked at the young woman with a hint of excitement and anticipation. Time passed slowly, and Lin felt that this test might be a test of their patience. Therefore, he did not make any unnecessary movements. Unknowingly, a long time passed. The red-clothed girl's body gently moved up and down, her head slightly tilted to one side. Sparkling and translucent liquid flowed out from the corner of her delicate mouth. Lin, Su Xiaolan, is she asleep? Lin transmitted his voice. I think so. She's drooling. Have you ever seen someone drool while meditating? Su Xiaolan transmitted her voice back. Then let's go wake her up. And Lin continued. Won't she get angry if we wake her up so abruptly? Then the inheritance will be ruined. Su Xiaolan was a little worried, and Lin nodded and felt that it made sense. Therefore, he threw Minnie White out. Go, Dabai. Woof. Why me? Dabai, who had not recovered from the trauma, wailed. Then, his dog face crashed into the young girl's face. Bam. Dabai crashed into the young girl and sent her tumbling backward. Su Xiaolan and Lin's eyes widened. He felt that he had thrown too much, but it was really not intentional. He just did not expect Dabai to be so light. Who? Wow, a dog? The young girl in red was knocked down and screamed in fright. Then, she saw Dabai's adorable dog face. She looked up and saw Lin, Su Xiaolan, and an ugly, adorable monkey. Her expression changed instantly, and a sharp aura began to burst out. Her entire body was like a sharp sword that had been unsheathed. Fated One, welcome to the Palace of Autumn. Do you want to obtain the Winter Dragon Tomb's sword inheritance? Her voice was crisp and pleasant, but it contained a frightening sharpness that made people shiver. And Lin was delighted when he heard this. Sword inheritance? I, and Lin's sword immortal, will definitely obtain this inheritance. He had already comprehended the 6 strikes of the war god. How difficult would it be to obtain the Palace of Autumn's sword inheritance? And Lin felt that he could not raise his head after being consecutively obtained by Su Xiaolan. Now that he was finally in a field that he was good at, he would be letting himself down if he did not show off a little. The method to obtain the sword inheritance this time is relatively simple. Watch my sword dance once. After you watch it, follow your own comprehension and restore my sword dance. I will see if you are qualified to obtain my inheritance, the young girl said in a clear voice. And Lin nodded excitedly. Okay, Senior Autumn Girl. I don't think I introduced my name. How did you know? The young girl in red's beautiful eyes lit up, and a curious expression appeared on her face. And Lin thought, based on Springman and Summerbird's character, as long as they are not stupid, they can deduce your name. However, he naturally would not say that. Instead, he smiled mysteriously. Maybe this is fate? Autumn Girl was stunned when she heard this, and then she laughed. You are quite an interesting person. And Lin was delighted. Her favorable impression of him had increased. Su Xiaolan pursed her lips, and there was a ball of anger in her heart. This and Lin was really good at flirting with girls in front of her. Autumn Girl began her sword dance. She was dressed in red, and her exquisite and slender body danced along with the longsword. She was like a butterfly dancing alone under a maple forest, beautiful and elegant, yet with a hint of killing intent and fierceness. It had to be said, and Lin was a bit dazed. This sword dance was really beautiful. Phew, I'm done. It's your turn. After Autumn Girl finished her sword dance, she panted slightly and looked at the fated person in front of her with bright eyes. Her gaze lingered on Lin for a bit longer. Perhaps it was because of the previous conversation, but there was a bit more anticipation in her eyes. And Lin was a bit dazed when he heard this, and a sense of danger welled up in his heart. At that time, he was only focused on admiring Autumn Girl's sword dance, but he did not seem to have comprehended anything. Was it nothing in the first place? But did he not comprehend anything? Should he imitate her movements and do a set of radio calisthenics? At this time, Su Xiaolan had already begun her sword dance. Dabai and Xiao Cho gave up on healing, and Lin was unwilling to give up. He picked up his evil-slaying sword and danced with it. Autumn Girl nodded slightly when she saw Su Xiaolan's sword dance. Then, she looked at Lin, and the corner of her mouth twitched. What was he doing? The sword dance ended. Beads of sweat appeared on Su Xiaolan's fair forehead, and Lin, on the other hand, looked as if he had done a radio calisthenics. He danced with his youth and did not feel anything. Autumn Girl walked toward Lin. This caused Lin's heart to beat faster. Is she finally going to choose me? Did you see my amazing talent in the way of the sword through my dance? Perhaps this is just fate. It's all right. Although your aptitude in the Tao of the sword is appalling, there are millions of Taos in this world. There's bound to be one that belongs to you. Autumn Maiden consoled as she patted Lin's shoulder. Lin was dumbfounded, and his mouth gaped open slightly. Autumn Girl walked towards Su Xiaolan. A bright smile appeared on her face. Fated One, are you willing to accept the Sword Tao inheritance of the Winter Dragon Tomb? Su Xiaolan nodded blankly. She had witnessed Lin's superb sword skills. She did not expect Autumn Girl to choose her. Wasn't Lin going easy on her? And Lin's sword dance just now was indeed unsightly. Perhaps he did it on purpose. Thinking of this, Su Xiaolan looked gratefully at Lin. Thank you. Chapter 248. After receiving the sword inheritance from the Palace of Autumn, Su Xiaolan's aura became even more powerful. Sigh, I'm finally free. You can rest in peace now that you've found such a good successor. Autumn Woman had a nostalgic expression on her face. Then, She smiled bitterly and shook her head helplessly. Autumn Woman didn't say anything else. She bid farewell to Enlin and the others and left the Palace of Autumn. Su Xiaolan excitedly pulled Enlin toward the Palace of Winter. After the sword Dao that Enlin was most proud of had been dealt a blow, his mental state was comparable to Dabai's. One had his sword Dao dignity wounded, and the other had his man's dignity wounded. They both wanted some peace and quiet. They saw the silver-haired Winter Man in the Palace of Winter. Winter Man's opening sentence was, "Life is as lonely as snow. Who will light up my lonely life?" Then he was captivated by the phoenix-like beautiful and noble Su Xiaolan. "Ah, you're like a fire that melts my heart. This beautiful lady, are you willing to accept my frost inheritance?" And Lin and Dabai the Clown were dumbfounded. Su Xiaolan shook her head earnestly. "I don't want it. I'm of the fire element. You don't understand. Ice and fire aren't contradictory to each other. Instead, they're interconnected. If you remove all the coldness from a place, then it's fire." Winter Man explained earnestly. Then he rambled on and on. Su Xiaolan was finally coaxed into accepting this frost inheritance. She melted a drop of ice into her palm. Although she didn't really believe Winter Man's words, she reluctantly accepted this inheritance with the principle that it would be a waste if she didn't accept it. "Fellow Taoist Su Xiaolan, why don't you leave me a voice transmission talisman?" Winter Man asked with a passionate look in his eyes. "I don't want it. We'll meet again if we're fated." Su Xiaolan rejected him without hesitation. "Ah, I like your fiery personality." Winter Man clutched his chest. He felt like his heart was about to melt again. "Then I'll leave first. The next time we meet, I'll make you fall in love with me." After saying this shamelessly, Winter Man reluctantly flew away from the Palace of Winter. Winter Man had not said a single word to Enlin, the clown, or Dabai. They were treated like air. It seems like this frost inheritance is quite useful. When fighting in a world of ice and snow, it can prevent my flames from being affected by the low temperature." Su Xiaolan was pleasantly surprised. She took Enlin's hand and continued to walk towards another palace. This was a good rhythm. Enlin rubbed his face and couldn't help but complain, "Xiaolan, is this winter dragon tomb owned by your family?" Su Xiaolan glanced at Enlin and understood Enlin's meaning. She waved her hand and smiled. "Maybe I'm fated with this dragon's tomb," Enlin nodded seriously. Fate is too wonderful for words. The two of them arrived at the fifth palace. This palace was called 1 year. There are 4 seasons in a year. Could this palace be related to the other palaces? Su Xiaolan looked at the palace in front of her with a hint of eagerness. It should be. Or maybe it's just because the owner of the dragon tomb has a literary problem. That's why it was named this way. Enlin wasn't sure either. In any case, he would only know after entering. They pushed open the door and entered. The two of them saw an elegant middle-aged man. After seeing the two of them enter, he took the initiative to greet them. "Welcome to 1 year, fellow Taoists. At the same time, congratulations on obtaining the inheritances of the 4 seasons. My name is Lord Year." Since this man knew that they had obtained the inheritances of the other 4 palaces, perhaps he really was the boss. Seeing this, Enlin and Su Xiaolan also introduced themselves. Then, they looked at the man in front of them respectfully. They had more or less figured out the nature of this dragon tomb. Every palace had a gravekeeper, and the gravekeeper would then choose the inheritor. As long as winged dragon Shen Yin's aura didn't reject the inheritor, the inheritance would be completed, and the gravekeeper would also obtain freedom. These people had all kinds of strange ways of setting questions. Whether they would give you the inheritance or not seemed to depend entirely on their mood. This could be inferred from the previous 4 gravekeepers. Lord Year looked like a calm man, and he had the demeanor of a boss. After hearing everyone's introduction, he smiled warmly. The inheritances of the 4 Seasons Palace are much more outstanding than those of the Zodiac Palace. Unfortunately, the first 2 batches of cultivators were bewitched by the Palace of Heaven and missed out on this inheritance. It's very good that you can resist the temptation of the Heavenly Palace's holy light and advance step by step. Enlin blinked. So his carpet-style plundering strategy was actually so knowledgeable? Lord Year looked at Enlin, Su Xiaolan, Dabai, and the clown, and asked with interest, "Then which of you obtained the inheritances of the 4 seasons?" Su Xiaolan took a step forward with a sheepish smile on her face. Lord Year nodded and continued to look at the crowd. There was a short period of silence. Seeing that the others didn't respond, Lord Year couldn't help but ask, "That's it?" Su Xiaolan nodded seriously. "I'm the only one who obtained the inheritance." The corner of Lord Year's mouth twitched slightly. "You obtained all of the 4 seasons?" Su Xiaolan blushed. Even she felt a little embarrassed, but she still nodded. What a strange fate this is. Lord Year looked at the sky and sighed. At this moment, Lin really wanted to chime in. "Boss, look, Su Xiaolan has already obtained so many inheritances. It's time for us little brothers to have a taste of the following inheritances." There was a look of appreciation on Lord Year's face as he gazed at Su Xiaolan. "Initially, I was planning on having the inheritances of spring, summer, autumn, and winter compete with each other to determine the final winner. But now, it's all concentrated on one person. And this person, Shun Yin's aura actually didn't reject it. This is the complete 4 seasons. Fellow Taoist Su Xiaolan, the 4 seasons soul jade in this palace is for you." As he spoke, Lord Year took out a gem that flowed with 4 colors, green, yellow, red, and white, and handed it to Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan took the 4 seasons soul jade in a daze. She couldn't react for a moment. Did the inheritance turn into a gifting mode? It felt pretty good, and Lin's eyes widened and his lips trembled. He felt as if his heart had been stabbed by a sword. What the hell was going on now? He didn't do anything, but he was already gifting her a treasure. Then, his eyes became a little dazed. Who am I? Why did I come here? What's the point of me coming here? He felt that other than playing the role of a shocked passerby, there seemed to be nothing else for him to do. I've completed my mission, and I've done it well. Lord Year tilted his head and looked at Su Xiaolan. He smiled and said, "It's time for me to go. See you again." As he spoke, Lord Year rose into the air and left the palace. Dabai and Xiao Chou were already used to this kind of development. They looked calm and resigned to their fate. "I feel like this bead is affecting the energy in my body." Su Xiaolan's eyes lit up as she spoke. At the same time, the 4 seasons soul jade in her hand exploded with 4 different kinds of light. After a moment, her expression changed drastically. I feel like the energy in my body is fusing and expanding." Hearing this, Lin began to worry. He hurriedly said, "Xiaolan, calm down first. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Su Xiaolan's face was slightly red, as if she was in pain. This made Lin's heart clench. Dabai and Xiao Chou also came over with concern. Xiao Chou's cultivation base was at half-step soul formation. He was just about to take Su Xiaolan's pulse when Su Xiaolan waved her hand to reject him. Su Xiaolan went into a meditative position and shook her head lightly. "Don't worry, I'm fine. I just feel that I'm about to break through." Lin, Dabai, Xiao Chou. Chapter 249. 1 human and 2 pets stood in silence. Looking at Su Xiaolan, who was in the process of making a breakthrough, they felt as if there were 10,000 mythological beasts galloping in their hearts. And Lin felt more and more like this dragon tomb was opened by Su Xiaolan's family. Even if they got in through the back door, they wouldn't be able to do this. The vital energy of heaven and earth formed a vortex and surged into Su Xiaolan's body. Su Xiaolan extracted the pure vital energy, and a golden flame seed began to appear on her spirit root, pushing her cultivation base to a higher level. Finally, she broke through certain shackle. Boom! A powerful aura exuded from her body. She opened her eyes and wisps of golden flames swirled in her limpid eyes, exuding a proud and majestic aura. "Congratulations, you've successfully broken through. Hurry up and treat us to a meal." And Lin congratulated Su Xiaolan as he sensed the powerful aura of the spirit-nurturing final stage. Su Xiaolan smiled faintly and looked toward Lin with her eyes that were still burning with golden flames. Her eyes were enchanting, elegant, and beautiful. There's also a hint of intimacy and gentleness in them. "Let me tell you some good news. Not only have I broken through, but my bloodline has also been further activated. Then you should treat us to a meal. Su Xiaolan thought for a moment. She flipped her hand, and a crimson fruit appeared in her hand. There were small, flaming dragons revolving around the fruit. Here, this is a dragon fruit. It's a third-rank spirit fruit. It's delicious, it's my treat. My God, why does this dragon fruit look different from the ones I've eaten before? Lin's eyes widened in surprise. He picked up the dragon fruit that Su Xiaolan had given him and took a big bite. Boom! The extremely spicy texture stimulated his taste buds, and he felt as if his taste buds were about to explode. Holy F***CK. Water, give me water. Lin felt as if there was a fire burning in his mouth. It was real fire. Don't drink water. Swallow it and your mouth won't be spicy anymore, Su Xiaolan advised. Lin swallowed the fruit. Sure enough, his mouth wasn't spicy anymore. Then, holy sh**t. My stomach. Help! Lin felt as if his stomach was on fire and was about to explode. When Su Xiaolan saw Lin's expression, she finally couldn't hold back her laughter. Her silvery laughter resounded in the palace, sounding exceptionally pleasing to the ears. Lin was very nervous at first, but after his stomach burned, he felt a stream of pure flame energy flowing through his body. He immediately felt extremely comfortable, as if his conception and governing vessels had been unblocked. He blinked his eyes. Is this bitterness followed by sweetness? Su Xiaolan took out another dragon fruit and ate it herself. She said with a smile, "Wrong, this is spicy first, then refreshing. It can even slightly increase the realm." Lin nodded. The taste of the fire dragon fruit was explosive, but after eating it, it felt so good that he couldn't help but continue eating. Therefore, he continued to eat, lingering between spiciness and pleasure. Dabai didn't have the face to look at the two of them. He felt that they were showing off. After eating the fire dragon fruit and resting for a while, the two of them continued on their journey. It's the Palace of Tigers this time? Lin looked at the signboard of the palace and guessed that it had something to do with the inheritance of beasts this time. Su Xiaolan smiled. I heard Lord Yin talk about the 12 zodiac animals before. This should be the palace with the 12 zodiac animals as the main characters. The two of them pushed open the door and entered with some anticipation. However, what they didn't expect was that the palace was empty. There was nothing inside. Where's the tiger? Lin asked curiously. He guessed that there should be an exotic beast like a tiger inside the Palace of Tigers, guarding it. Sigh, looks like the inheritance has been taken away. Su Xiaolan was a little disappointed. The group carefully searched the interior of the palace again, but still didn't find anything. They had no choice but to continue on to the next palace. The Palace of Rabbits was still empty. The Palace of Dragons, Palace of Snakes, Palace of Horses, they went through all the palaces of the 12 zodiac animals, but they were all empty. Finally, there was a single zodiac animal palace. There were 12 zodiac animal statues on it. They looked extremely lifelike and seemed to be worth a lot of money. Lin tried to move them into his storage ring, but he failed again. They've mastered all 12 zodiac animals. The first two batches of cultivators were way too powerful. They were all defeated by the Palace of Heaven. Lin stroked his chin with a perplexed expression. If the purpose of this dragon tomb is to find a fated person to inherit its legacy, then wouldn't it be a waste if the fated person to inherit these zodiac signs is killed here? Have you forgotten? Those tomb keepers are actually also very good heirs, Su Xiaolan said with a smile. Makes sense. So the previous inheritances were only the appetizers. Those fated people are actually not important. The real inheritance, the complete inheritance of winged dragon Shanine, if there is one, is probably in that place. He raised his head and looked toward the enchanting palace that was exuding a holy white light. The Palace of Heaven. The two of them looked at the palace. After seeing the holy light, a feeling of wanting to go there surged in their hearts. Let's loot the other palaces first. Lin didn't dare to look at the Palace of Heaven and said to Su Xiaolan. Just like that, the two of them continued onward. They arrived at a place called the Palace of Life. This palace was very strange. There were many strange plants growing inside, such as golden trees, bone flowers that were even larger than trees, and grass that glowed with five-colored light. These were all plants that Lin had never seen before, not even in the illustrated handbook of natural treasures. Their vital energy fluctuations were extremely powerful. They were clearly not ordinary plants. Could it be that this was an inheritance related to strange plants? And Lin suppressed his curiosity and walked toward the depths of the plants. He then saw a white-haired old man sitting on a chair. There was a table in front of him, on which there were oracle bones, copper coins, grass, and other strange things. Young, fated people, welcome to the Palace of Life. I'm Elder Fate. We provide the fairest, most accurate, and most powerful fortune-telling services here. Would you like to come? The white-haired old man narrowed his eyes and spoke with a benevolent expression. Lin and Su Xiaolan were both taken aback. A fortune-teller. There are no other inheritances, tests, or treasures? Lin blinked and asked curiously. Elder Fate chuckled. The Palace of Life only provides fortune-telling services. I'm already halfway into the grave, so I don't have any treasures to offer. I only know how to tell fortunes. The price ranges from 10,000 to 30,000 spirit stones. Let's see what you want. The corner of Lin's mouth twitched slightly. F*CK. Who are you trying to fool? I'm already halfway into the grave, so what do I need spirit stones for? Just as he was considering whether to turn around and leave, Su Xiaolan had already walked up and asked with a smile. All right then, Elder Fate, can I trouble you to tell for me what dangers there are in the Palace of Heaven? Huh, little girl, you really know how to take advantage of loopholes. That's right, you asked the wrong question. I'm telling about personal fortune, and it's about the person, not a certain place. I can help you tell what dangers you will encounter in the Palace of Heaven, Elder Fate said with a calm expression. Su Xiaolan thought for a moment. The dangers she would encounter could also be the dangers Lin would encounter, so there wasn't much difference. Thus, she nodded and said, All right then, you go ahead. Pay up first. This will cost 30,000 spirit stones. Elder Fate stretched out his hand. Lin, this was the most unstylish fortune-teller he had ever seen. Su Xiaolan pursed her lips. She fished out 3 vital stones from her storage ring and handed them to Elder Fate. Elder Fate connected a white thread to Su Xiaolan's wrist. He closed his eyes, and the oracle bone and copper coins on the table began to move on their own. After a moment, he looked towards Su Xiaolan with a shocked expression. You have an extremely strong connection with the Palace of Heaven, he said. This kind of powerful karma is like an impenetrable barrier that obstructs my vision. What's your relationship with Dragon Master Divine Sound? Su Xiaolan blinked. There's no relationship. Speaking of which, what dangers will I encounter in the Palace of Heaven? Elder Fate shook his head slowly. I don't know, Su Xiaolan and Lin. By the way, can I get a refund? Su Xiaolan asked expressionlessly. And Lin also looked at the old man in front of him with a cold expression. This guy is definitely a fake. F*CK. You haven't told anything yet you still have the nerve to take money? Are you a robber? Elder Fate was embarrassed by their stares, and he hurriedly explained, I need to expend a lot of energy when I tell fortunes. These spirit stones are for me to replenish my energy, so I can't return them. If I return them, I won't be able to tell fortunes next time. Elder Fate spoke with great sincerity, and his eyes even reddened. This caused Lin and Su Xiaolan's anger to subside quite a bit. All right, then you can also tell for me. Let's do something simple. Help me tell when I'll have a girlfriend. And Lin originally wanted to ask Elder Fate to tell what dangers he would encounter in the Palace of Heaven. However, he was afraid that Elder Fate would use the same words as Su Xiaolan to bluff him. Thus, he chose a simpler one. What's a girlfriend? Elder Fate blinked. Lin returned to his senses and corrected himself. Tell when I'll have a Tao partner. Su Xiaolan blushed slightly when she heard this, and she looked elsewhere. Elder Fate laughed heartily. He was good at this, and he immediately said, No problem, no problem. This only costs 10,000 spirit stones. And Lin nodded and handed a vital stone to Elder Fate. Elder Fate used the white silk thread to wrap around Lin's wrist, and he began to tell. A moment later, he broke out in a cold sweat. Chapter 250. Elder Fate felt like he was on the verge of breaking down. This was because he couldn't see through Lin's fate at all. If his investigation into the relationship between Su Xiaolan and the Palace of Heaven was blocked by a powerful barrier of karma, then investigating Lin's fate was a dense fog that he couldn't see through at all. Forget about Lin's karma. He couldn't even divine if Lin would have food to eat tomorrow. How could this be? It didn't make sense. His cultivation base was too high to divine, but the male in front of him was only of the spirit-nurturing initial stage. The more Elder Fate thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong, and the more he panicked. Seeing that Elder Fate's expression wasn't right, and Lin thought that the road of love was going to be bumpy. He also became nervous. How is it? When will I get a Tao partner? Elder Fate gulped. He felt that if he told the truth, he would definitely be treated as a swindler. At that time, even the 40,000 spirit stones would be snatched back. Should I coax him a little? Elder Fate thought for a moment, then cleared his throat. He shook his head and said, "From afar, the mountains are colorful. Up close, the water is silent. Young friend, your karma isn't far off. Only by transcending the 3 tribulations for 100 years can 2 hearts appreciate each other. You and her will be an extremely enviable Tao partner." There was no doubt that Elder Fate's glib tongue was extremely impressive, regardless of whether it was true or not, and Lin was already grinning from ear to ear from the praise. He felt that the 10,000 spirit stones were well spent. Just like that, Lin and Su Xiaolan left the Palace of Life. Lin had originally wanted to divine something else, but unexpectedly, Elder Fate directly refused. He said that each person could only divine one and told them to hurry up and leave. He had no choice but to leave with a slightly regretful expression. "Xiaolan, do you think this old man's divination is accurate?" Lin asked with a bit of a chuckle. Su Xiaolan lowered her head, and a faint blush appeared on her face. "It should be believable," she replied in a serious tone. "A fortune-telling palace can't be set up just to scam people out of money. That would be far too immoral." Lin nodded in agreement. "My karma is coming within 100 years. Actually, I'm quite satisfied with this time span. It's neither too long nor too short." Su Xiaolan nodded. 100 years is enough to recognize a person, and it's also enough to find someone to walk the same path as you. Lin, what's your ideal Tao companion like?" She raised her head and looked at Lin. Her gaze was bright and extremely moving. Lin and Su Xiaolan looked at each other. His heart was beating like a train, and he hurriedly looked away. No, I have to be steady. If he acted too abruptly now, he would lose Fairy Lon. I'm still young. I haven't thought about this." Lin said perfunctorily, "That's right. You're still so young. What's the point of thinking about something so far away? At your age, you should follow me, Dabai, to visit a brothel, woof." Dabai forcefully interrupted. "Su Xiaolan, Lin, you've been to a brothel before?" Lin hurriedly explained. "How could I? Why would I go to a brothel?" Dabai smiled wickedly. "Have you forgotten about Sister Lanyu at the Spring River Pavilion? Woof. Holy F***CK. Dabai, do you still have a nerve to say that? If it wasn't for me trying to get you back, would I have gone?" Lin's veins popped as he clenched his fists and was about to teach Dabai a lesson. Seeing this, Dabai immediately ran. "Don't run." Lin roared and chased after him. "Come and chase me. If you can catch me, I'll let you." Dabai yelled as he ran. Su Xiaolan, she massaged her brows. So, Lin had been to a brothel after all? In the end, Dabai was still caught by Lin. Then, a series of pong sounds ensued. After beating up Dabai, everyone continued forward and arrived at the Palace of Yellow. It looked like the last 4 palaces were heaven, earth, black, and yellow. Lin felt that they could actually add a universe, chaos, and chaos series, but after thinking about it, it seemed too domineering. It was understandable that Winged Dragon Shun Een didn't add it. Before entering the gate, Lin had Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 lead the way. These tough, and powerful mechanical puppets were the most suitable for this kind of task. After the gate opened, an extremely oppressive aura swept out from within. It was as if a huge mountain was crushing down on everyone, making it hard for them to breathe. Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 immediately unleashed their ion deprivation protective barrier, isolating them from this powerful aura. Pressuring him with his aura the moment they met, it seemed like this tomb keeper wasn't too friendly. If you want to obtain Shun Yin's inheritance, then piss off to the Palace of Heaven. Don't bother me here. A coarse voice boomed out, causing the space around them to tremble uncontrollably. And Lin focused his gaze and saw a red-haired man with his shirt off, revealing his bronze-colored muscles. This man's entire body was enshrouded in red flames, appearing extremely domineering and intimidating. And Lin mustered up his courage and asked, "Then, Senior, what do you have here?" "Heh." The red-haired man looked at Lin with a cold expression. "I have a fire spirit vital bead here. It's in my body. Do you think you have the ability to obtain it?" The man patted the area where his heart was, and the corners of his lips curled up in a provocative manner. And Lin understood now. Instance dungeons had already become a method of killing monsters and obtaining treasures. He and Su Xiaolan were both a little hesitant. This man was clearly a powerful being of the soul formation stage, and, judging from the aura he was exuding, he was at least of the soul formation intermediate stage, perhaps even the soul formation final stage. If they really fought, this battle would definitely become extremely dangerous. Ding dong. The system's Special Missions tab suddenly flashed, and Lin immediately focused his attention and opened the system in his mind. Detected that host has encountered the Fire Spirit Vital Bead. Now assigning the following mission: frowny face, absorb all the Fire Essence energy within the Fire Spirit Vital Bead. Reward for mission success. Obtain the Fire-type cultivation method, Wings of True Fire, Stage 1. Penalty for mission failure. Be paralyzed for 1 month, unable to use vital energy during this period. Time limit 2 hours. And Lin grimaced upon seeing this mission. The system's habit of sending him to wherever there was danger was probably impossible to change. Then, he only had 2 choices now. He could choose to fight like a man, or he could choose to be paralyzed for a month like a coward. If he chose to fight, there would be a terrifying outcome, and that was that he might be killed by this red-haired man. Are you going to fight or not? If not, then scram. The red-haired man seemed to be a little impatient, and even the flames on his body became more aggressive. Fight! And Lin steeled his heart and stepped forward. Su Xiaolan, don't fight. Leave this person to me, and the Fire Spirit Vital Bead is mine. Su Xiaolan didn't really care about the Fire Spirit Vital Bead. Her Vermilion Bird sect didn't lack fire essence items like this. However, she was a little worried about Lin. You really don't need my help? And Lin shook his head and smiled. I really don't need your help. He gripped his evil-slaying sword and took a step forward. His aura erupted without reservation. Oh, although you're very weak, you're acting like a man. The red-haired man grinned and also erupted with his aura. Red flames roared and danced along with him. This man's aura was extremely fearsome. He had already reached the soul formation final stage. His powerful aura crashed into Lin's body, causing his muscles to tremble involuntarily. Gundam 1, Gundam 2, you guys are in charge of attacking. Dabai, Xiaoqiu, you guys are in charge of holding the line. And Lin yelled from behind. Dabai's big round eyes widened. Then were you in charge of Big Brother and Wolf? And Lin cleared his throat before replying with a calm expression. I'll be in charge. Dabai, Xiaoqiu, Su Xiaolan, the red-haired man. Chapter 251. The crimson-haired man's lips twitched upon hearing and Lin's confident words. F***CK, you're not a man. The crimson-haired man really wanted to beat someone up. Gundam 1, Gundam 2, attack. And Lin roared. The 2 Gundams immediately pounced toward the crimson-haired man with all their might. The crimson-haired man stepped forward, and over 100 crimson flaming dragons materialized in the air before crashing toward the 2 Gundams with scorching heat. The 2 Gundams were extremely agile, and they transformed into a series of silver afterimages as they evaded the flaming dragons. One of the Gundams immediately unleashed a purple halo of light after closing in on the crimson-haired man, and a powerful gravitational field was unleashed. Boom! The Earth instantly caved in. The crimson-haired man felt as if he were being crushed by a gargantuan mountain. This is gravity. The man's expression shifted. Just as he was beginning to panic, the other Gundam had already slashed toward his face with its light sword. The man roared in rage as the power of his domain quickly proliferated outward. Crimson flames engulfed his entire body like raging waves before materializing into the shape of an armored giant. This flaming armor was extremely solid, almost as if it were solid. The armored giant didn't even try to evade the Gundam's light sword. Instead, it threw a punch. Boom! The fist collided with the light sword, and flames exploded. The Gundam's particle sword tore through the flaming giant's fist, but the Gundam's body was knocked back by the powerful force of the explosion. What kind of sword is this? It can even slice through my domain armor. The crimson-haired man was extremely astonished by the abilities of these two silver puppets. Just as the Gundam was knocked back, Xiao Cho took advantage of the opportunity to appear next to the crimson-haired man. Now, strike his knee. Lin roared after activating his divine inspection technique. Xiao Cho unleashed all of his power as he viciously swung his staff toward the crimson-haired man's knee. The silver rod, which carried a tremendous force, collided with the armor, and a loud sound accompanied by a shock wave swept out in all directions. Crack! The armor around his knees shattered. The armored giant's legs bent, and it fell to the side as if it had lost its balance. The red-haired man felt a chill run down his spine upon seeing this. He didn't pay too much attention to Dabai, a spirit beast that hadn't even reached the soul formation stage, which was why the clown was able to take advantage of it. But he never expected that the clown's lightning-fast attack would hit his most crucial part. Impossible! How could he know the weakness of my armor domain? Coincidence? As the red-haired man's thoughts raced, a white mist suddenly rose and enveloped the entire space. Azure Wolf's Cloud. Dabai unleashed an immortal spell that could isolate one's vision. Just as the red-haired man's flaming armored giant collapsed, the gravity suddenly became even more terrifying. Originally, the gravity that only affected his battle had now become a monstrous gravity that prevented him from moving. Impossible! How could he still have energy left? The red-haired man asked in shock. The puppet's strength had far exceeded his expectations. He decisively crippled one of the flaming armored giant's arms. The arm transformed into a huge flaming sword and flew toward the Gundam that was using gravity. Even though his vision was blocked, he could still use his divine sense to detect the enemy's location. This huge flaming sword was extremely fast, and it almost hit the Gundam that was using the gravity technique. The huge flaming sword sent the Gundam flying for over 1,000 feet, and it flew out of the Palace of Yellow's range. However, at the same time, the Gundam wielding the light sword had already flown toward the giant's other knee and slashed at it. Boom! A huge explosion erupted. The giant's other knee was shattered, and it knelt on the ground. The red-haired man inside the flaming armored giant swayed violently as he suffered the backlash of the domain's aura. He spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the clown's silver staff began to ferociously strike the flaming armored giant's head. This was the weakness that Lin had discovered using his divine inspection technique. If the silver staff struck the giant's head at this moment, this armor domain would completely collapse. I've really been underestimated. I'm actually being bullied by a half-step soul formation stage monkey. The red-haired man's eyes blazed with flames as he spoke with a vicious expression. At this moment, he chose to let the armor self-destruct. Boom! The self-destruction of the flaming armor transformed into the most ferocious flames that spread out in all directions. This was the full power attack of a soul formation final stage cultivator. The power contained within the flames was extremely terrifying. It melted the ground, swallowed the palace, and transformed the floating stone continent into a sea of flames. The clown was sent flying by the explosion of flames. Even in Lin and Su Xiaolan, who were standing in the distance, were swept away by this violent explosion of flames. They flew into the distance and tumbled to the ground. The red-haired man walked out of the sea of flames and walked toward Lin. Although there was blood flowing from the corner of his mouth, his footsteps were extremely firm. His towering rage made him seem like a demonic god, and there was a bloodthirsty expression on his face. Not bad. You actually forced me to the point where I self-destructed my domain. However, your physical strength is simply too weak. You're so weak that you don't even have the courage to fight me head-on. Without those two puppets, I can fight 100 people like you. The man walked toward Lin, and the crimson flames carried with them a bloodthirsty and violent aura as they revolved around his body. Since you've chosen to fight, you should be prepared to pay with your life if you lose. The red-haired man looked at the collapsed Lin and stabbed his finger toward Lin's heart. Now, it's time for me to take your life. In the distance, a white laser arrived first. Boom! The laser struck the red-haired man's chest and sent him flying. PFFF, the man spat out a mouthful of blood. His chest was a bloody mess from the laser attack. Behind him, the dark purple dragon flames from the other Gundam arrived and engulfed his entire body. This kind of all-pervasive flame crazily attacked his body. The man howled in pain. Even though he had a soul formation stage body, his defenses would be weakened if he used too much power. The dark purple dragon fire had obviously done a lot of damage to him, and Lin seemed to be prepared for this. His eyes turned snowy white, and a pair of white wings of wind spread open on his back. He charged toward the red-haired man at a speed that was too fast to be seen by the naked eye. So fast, the red-haired man's pupils contracted, and the threat of death enveloped his entire body. His reaction was extremely fast, and his fist instinctively punched toward Lin. However, Lin's reaction was even faster. He twisted his head and evaded the red-haired man's fist. The evil-slaying sword was enveloped in streams of wind as it stabbed toward the red-haired man. It wasn't aimed at his heart or his head. Instead, it was aimed at the red-haired man's navel. In that instant, the red-haired man finally realized that he had underestimated his opponent. The power that the man in front of him had unleashed in that instant was far beyond his expectations. What was even more terrifying was that Lin was extremely familiar with his fatal weakness. The black longsword pierced through the red-haired man's navel. The red-haired man felt as if he had been imprisoned in that instant. He was completely immobilized, and white smoke rose from his body. "I've underestimated you," the man said slowly. A faint smile appeared on Lin's face as he flipped his hair. "Remember, don't talk so much when you're fighting. If you want to flex, do it after the fight." The red-haired man's face convulsed. He liked to flex when he was fighting, and this was none of his business? "You actually died a long time ago, right?" Lin suddenly said. The red-haired man's body trembled slightly. He looked at the man in front of him and didn't say anything. "The beast pet in my pocket told me. She said that you no longer have any life essence, and you can only survive by relying on the fire's spirit vital bead," and Lin continued. "Your beast pet is really powerful." The red-haired man's body began to slowly melt. His skin turned into red lava and flowed to the ground. And Lin immediately asked upon seeing that he had already begun to melt, "Are the 3 Tomb Guardians behind you the same as you?" "I guess." The red-haired man's body began to melt even faster, but there was a hint of a relieved smile on his face. Splash! His body completely turned into boiling lava and fell to the ground. And Lin, Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 ran back. They had expended too much energy and had returned to their storage rings to devour spirit stones. Xiao Chou and Dabai also walked over. Both of them were injured. In particular, Xiao Chou's fur had been charred by the explosion, and Lin had given him blood spirit pills. He had prepared quite a few of these spirit pills that could replenish one's energy and blood. After the battle, he obtained the spoils of war as he wished. The fire spirit vital bead hovered in midair where the red-haired man's heart was, radiating a crimson light. Su Xiaolan walked over and held the fire spirit vital bead in her hand as she curiously probed the aura within it. What a rich fire essence. It's almost as rich as the holy bead in my sect. No wonder it could become the core of a soul formation final stage cultivator. You have to be careful when you use it. If you don't control it well, it might explode. Su Xiaolan cautioned as she handed the fire spirit vital bead to Enlin. It might explode? It would have been better if he hadn't said anything. However, Enlin instantly panicked upon hearing this. He held the fire spirit vital bead in his hand as he said uneasily, "Then go further away and prepare a healing technique." "What are you going to do?" Su Xiaolan was a little uneasy. "I'm going to absorb all the fire essence in the fire spirit vital bead," Enlin said solemnly. Su Xiaolan's eyes widened in shock. "Just like that?" Enlin nodded. "What?" Su Xiaolan grimaced. "I'm telling you, you'll die if you play with fire like this. I think it's more realistic if I prepare a coffin for you." Chapter 252. Is it really that terrifying? And Lin's eyes widened as he stared at Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan nodded solemnly. "If you absorb it like this, you're guaranteed to die." And Lin looked at the crimson spirit bead in his hand with a puzzled expression. "Then how do I absorb it?" Su Xiaolan massaged her brows in exasperation. "I don't know why you want to absorb the fire essence in the bead, but I can set up a spell formation to make the fire essence more gentle. At the same time, I can set up a self-detonation warning. If there are signs of self-detonation, then you must immediately stop absorbing the fire essence." And Lin looked at Su Xiaolan gratefully. "All right, then I'll have to trouble you. Sigh, you're always so reckless. You deserve to die next time." Su Xiaolan glared at Enlin. She was clearly very displeased with his reckless behavior. Enlin scratched his head in embarrassment and didn't dare to say anything. After a while, the spell formation was set up. He sat in the center of the spell formation with his legs crossed and began to absorb the fire essence from the fire spirit vital bead in his hand. Extremely pure fire essence began to flow into his body, causing it to become scorching hot. 1 hour later, Enlin's entire body began to turn crimson. His body was boiling hot, and white mist began to emerge from it. Outside the spell formation, Su Xiaolan clenched her fists tightly as she looked at Enlin with a nervous expression. Above her head, Xiaohong was swaying with the wind. This was a familiar scene, but it was a completely different state of mind. Xiaohong was a lot calmer now. She looked at her master, who was about to explode, with a curious expression. Even if her master was killed, she could rely on photosynthesis to survive. There was nothing to be afraid of. Boom! The spell formation began to tremble, and an alarm began to sound. "Enlin, it's going to explode. Hurry up and stop," Su Xiaolan yelled. Enlin's entire body turned crimson, and it was as if his blood was boiling, but he couldn't stop. Yes, his entire body was no longer under his control. The only thing he could do was to continuously absorb the fire essence energy. Just as Su Xiaolan was about to rush into the formation and forcibly interrupt Enlin's actions, the center of the formation suddenly changed. Red flaming feathers condensed in the air, flickering with beautiful fiery light. From afar, it looked like the feathers of a phoenix soaring in the sky. So beautiful! Su Xiaolan stared at the fiery feathers fluttering in the air and couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. They wouldn't land on the ground. Instead, they danced around in Lin's body agilely, releasing light and heat like cheerful fire elves. The speed at which it absorbed the fire source became faster, but the alarm of the array formation no longer sounded. Another half an hour passed. The fire feather fused into Enlin's body, and the fire spirit elemental bead dimmed and turned into a useless rock. Ding dong, mission completed. The first stage of the wings of true fire cultivation technique began to flow into his body. Very quickly, this cultivation technique, which contained the origin power of true fire and could greatly increase his battle prowess, completely fused with him. And Lin stood up with bright eyes. "I feel like my entire body is filled with power. I feel like my blood is boiling. I want to fight." Su Xiaolan didn't expect that such a huge amount of fire essence energy would be completely absorbed by Enlin. Even though she was mentally prepared, she was still given a fright. "Come, let's go to the Palace of Black. I want to fight." and Lin's eyes flickered with excitement. Dabai, Big Brother, and is actually so hot-blooded? This doesn't fit his character. Xiao Cho, I don't know why, but seeing Big Brother like this, I'm ignited. Xiao Red calmly shrank into Su Xiaolan's robes. Big Sister Su Xiaolan, I think Master is courting death again. I'll hide here until the storm blows over. Su Xiaolan and Lin didn't waste any more time and walked toward the Palace of Black first. He kicked open the door of the palace with one foot and stepped in aggressively. The tomb keeper of the Palace of Black was given a fright. However, he quickly calmed down and narrowed his eyes at Lin. What a strong battle intent. Is this a declaration of war? And Lin looked at the tomb keeper. He was a tall and thin young man with fair skin. This man also had a pair of extremely exquisite dragon horns on his head, giving off a sense of majesty. Horned dragon? And Lin looked at the man, his eyes blazing with battle intent. What good stuff do you have here? A cold glint flashed across the young man's eyes. He patted his chest. There's a black lightning dragon ball here. If you're not afraid of death, come and take it. And Lin chortled with glee. My entire body is brimming with power now. Die. Su Xiaolan Xiao Cho Dabai. It's over. Big Brother has gone crazy. And Lin let loose a loud roar. His entire body slowly turned crimson red, and his aura soared explosively. Eat my fist. He roared. He stomped his foot on the ground and shot toward the young man like a cannonball. Then, he threw a punch at the man in front of him. The young man responded expressionlessly with a punch of his own. Boom! The terrifying power of the collision caused the ground around them to crack open, and Lin flew backward as if he had been struck by a heavy blow. He crashed into the palace wall, causing it to explode. Then, he flew out of everyone's field of vision. Su Xiaolan, Xiao Cho, why didn't Big Brother release the two Gundams? Dabai spoke as if he had seen through the truth. It's probably because Big Brother's brain was fried when he absorbed the fire essence from the fire spirit vital bead. Don't you realize that he's like an idiot now? Su Xiaolan instantly came to a realization upon hearing this. She clapped her hands together. No wonder. That's a real possibility. She then suggested, then let's retreat and wait for Lin to recover first. Xiao Cho and Dabai didn't object and were about to leave. To their surprise, a familiar voice sounded in the distance. Ha! What a powerful opponent. I'm fired up. A man flew toward them on his sword before unleashing a powerful sword strike. My God, Big Brother knows sword kinesis flight. Dabai let loose another cry of surprise. And Lin's sword flashed like a rainbow as it slashed toward the young man. You can't win a battle just by being hot-blooded. You're seeking death if you don't recognize the difference in power between you and your opponent. The young man's hands transformed into dragon claws and easily caught Lin's sword strike. He opened his mouth and blew, and a hurricane sword blade materialized in the air. This hurricane sword blade was imbued with the terrifying power of the dragon vein, and it reached Lin in the blink of an eye, sending him flying with blood gushing from his mouth. The young man clasped his hands behind his back, and the aura of a horned dragon swept outward. He's too weak. You guys can all come meet together. Dabai and Xiao Cho looked at each other before picking up Lin, who had fallen to the ground with blood gushing out of his mouth, and immediately running away. Su Xiaolan had also unleashed a 30-feet-tall wall of flames, which was extremely dazzling and obscured the young man's field of vision. Within the palace, the voices became softer and softer. Let go of me. Don't be a coward if you're a man. I feel like my body is full of power. I can still fight. Shut up, F***CK. I don't have such a retarded master, woof. And Lin, calm down. I'll help you check if your brain is fried. After the wall of flames disappeared, everyone had already disappeared from the palace. The young man, boring. Chapter 253. And Lin lay on the ground. The flush on his face still hadn't faded. Dabai was sitting on top of him, his two large paws pressing down on Lin's hands. Let go of me, Dabai. What are you doing to me? And Lin wanted to struggle, but he had just been injured and Dabai's several hundred kilograms weight was pressing down on him. So it was quite difficult for him to struggle. Dabai spat. Do you think I want to press down on you? I'm trying to stop you from going crazy, woof. Let go of me, I'm not crazy. And Lin was still struggling. Seeing this, Xiao Cho used the withered vines binding technique on Enlin, binding his body tightly. Enlin, pressing down on me and binding me up? Does it have to be so perverted? Xiao Cho, Su Xiaolan walked over to Enlin and squatted down. She placed a slender finger on Enlin's forehead, releasing a faint, cooling sensation to cool down his body. After a moment, she said indifferently, "Your body temperature has reached over 60 degrees. If you were a normal person, you would have died a long time ago. Your condition is slightly better. Your body isn't damaged, but there's something wrong with your brain." Enlin's restlessness gradually subsided due to Su Xiaolan's immortal spell. However, his lips twitched when he heard the last sentence. Who would have thought that the inheritance of ice I learned would come in handy so quickly? Su Xiaolan said with a teasing smile. I also didn't think that learning the wings of true fire would have such severe repercussions. And Lin chuckled self-mockingly. He finally came to his senses now. What the hell was this hot-blooded? Just then, he actually used the body of a spirit-nurturing stage cultivator to take on the horn dragon of the soul formation final stage. Even though he had many cultivation techniques, he was still seeking death. Fortunately, that young man liked to flex, and he ran away quickly. Otherwise, he really might have died there. Wow, Big Brother and is finally back to normal, woof. Dabai wagged his snowy white tail as he squatted down with excitement. F*CK, Dabai, be gentle. And Lin was already injured, and this time he was almost out of breath. Seeing that Enlin had returned to normal, the dog pressure technique and binding play were removed. Enlin swallowed a spiritual blood pill and began to meditate to recover from his injuries. Time slowly passed, and the light in the dragon tomb gradually dimmed, sinking into darkness. Huh, this arcane realm has day and night? Enlin blinked. Maybe it's to make the tomb keepers feel like they're living a normal life, Su Xiaolan guessed. Enlin shook his head and said sympathetically, the life of a tomb keeper is so boring, quite pitiful. Su Xiaolan was a little depressed. I really don't know why this tomb needs so many tomb keepers. If it's really for the sake of inheritance, they could have set up some traps and illusionary realms to select people. After the two of them expressed their sympathy for the tomb keepers, they began to discuss how to kill the young man from the Palace of Black. In the end, they came up with a battle plan and charged into the Palace of Black again. A meaningful smile appeared on the young man's face as he looked at the group of people charging into the Palace of Black. Oh, I didn't think you guys would have the guts to come back. Cut the crap. Hand over your life. Enlin roared and immediately released Gundam 1 and Gundam 2. The young man's expression changed slightly when he saw Gundam 1 and Gundam 2. However, he didn't care. After all, the metal puppets controlled by cultivators of the spirit-nurturing stage couldn't be that powerful. However, the young man soon realized how naive his thoughts were. The coordination between the two Gundams was simply nature-defying. One used gravitational field, superparticle chains, and other terrifying restraining techniques, while the other used light, sword slashes, and laser cannons. The young man was overwhelmed, especially Enlin, who was guiding the battle from the side like a military counselor, was able to find the young man's flaws every time, causing him to be injured again and again. How? The young man roared angrily. Dragon scales started to cover his entire body, and the power of his bloodline was completely activated. He unleashed his full strength and sent one of the Gundams flying with a punch. Blue lightning burst forth from his body, and he pounced toward Enlin like a bolt of lightning. At this time, killing Enlin, who was controlling the metal puppets and had the ability to see through their flaws, was the correct choice. However, just as the distance between him and Enlin was reduced to a mere 30 feet, Enlin suddenly burst into laughter. Boom! A terrifying pillar of flames soared into the sky and enveloped him within. Su Xiaolan made a hand seal and unleashed the full power of her divine phoenix bloodline. The flames of the pillar of flames took on a golden hue. Not only was it extremely hot, but it also had an extremely powerful restraining power. The clown unleashed his black flame domain and blocked the young man's attack head-on. Dabai whipped up a gust of wind, causing the flames of the Pillar of Flames to become even more intense. At the same time, Lin made a bow-drawing gesture. Flaming feathers fluttered in the air and quickly condensed into a crimson arrow. The extreme heat caused the surrounding space to distort slightly. An immortal spell derived from the first stage of the Wings of True Fire, Crimson God Arrow. Whoosh! The Crimson God Arrow was extremely fast, leaving a crimson trail in its wake. It passed under the clown's armpit and pierced the young man's chest. This was one of the flaws identified by the Divine Inspection technique. The young man was caught off guard, and the Crimson God Arrow pierced through his chest with extreme heat. The clown and Su Xiaolan retreated almost immediately after he was struck by the arrow. Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 finished charging up their superparticle photovoltaic cannons and fired. The young man only felt an arrow in his chest, which caused his defenses to falter. Then, he felt the golden energy blast hurtling toward him. The superparticle photovoltaic cannons consumed a lot of energy, but they were also extremely powerful. The terrifying energy blasted the Palace of Black into smithereens and created a terrifying crater in the floating boulder. "Ha, we did it!" And Lin panted as he laughed. If he's blasted into smithereens, will the Black Lightning Dragon Ball also be blasted into smithereens? Su Xiaolan was a little worried, and Lin shook his head. "Don't worry, a Soul Formation Final Stage Horned Dragon won't be blasted into smithereens so easily. If it really is blasted into smithereens, then I'll be in big trouble. I still have something important to do." Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 were almost completely drained of energy. They immediately flew back into Lin's storage ring and used every second they had to replenish their energy. Ow! An earth-shattering dragon roar sounded in the midst of the flying dust and debris. Immediately afterward, a gargantuan black figure soared into the sky. It was over 1,000 feet in length, and its terrifying aura created a hurricane that blew away the dust and debris, revealing its mighty body to everyone. "That's right. You think you could defeat me with this kind of attack? You're looking down on me too much." The horned dragon revealed its true form. Its voice was like a clap of thunder, and it was extremely powerful. Blood gushed out of its gargantuan body, dyeing its entire body red. It had clearly been severely wounded. Although it won't be blasted into smithereens, it will definitely be severely wounded. And Lin didn't panic at the sight of the horned dragon. Instead, he heaved a sigh of relief with a smile on his face. "Do you think I won't be able to kill you just because I'm severely wounded?" The horned dragon roared with rage. A monstrous dragon might erupted from its body, causing the wind and clouds to churn violently. Thick clouds began to gather in the sky as boundless lightning might began to gather. "I only need one attack to deal with you guys." The horned dragon's eyes were filled with authority. Its gargantuan body rose into the sky, and it began to summon wind and rain. Countless menacing bolts of lightning began to gather in the sky before the horned dragon. And Lin raised his head and saw that the horned dragon seemed to have condensed thousands of bolts of lightning into one. An extremely fearsome lightning might cause heaven and earth to tremble. Compress, compress, and compress. The lightning within the sea of lightning condensed into a bolt of divine lightning. The divine lightning slowly turned from blue to purple, and finally, there was a hint of gold within the purple. As soon as the purple-gold lightning appeared, it released a king's might that made it hard for people to breathe, causing them to feel intimidated. This final attack seems a little powerful, and Lin's lips trembled slightly. It had to be said, he was a little scared. For the first time, he felt uncertain. The horned dragon circled proudly in the sky. However, there was only awe and reverence in its eyes as it looked at the purple-gold lightning. This is the most powerful dragon lightning, and it's invincible below the return to void stage. Die. The purple-gold lightning descended at an incredible speed. It was like a sharp sword that sliced through the night sky, and it became the only color between heaven and earth. The horned dragon turned to look at Lin. It wanted to see how Lin was going to be obliterated by the purple gold lightning. Then it saw Lin extend a finger. Immediately afterward, a peculiar scene unfolded. The purple gold lightning suddenly became motionless. How dazzling was that light? How beautiful and breathtaking it was for it to remain motionless in the night sky. But why the F***CK isn't it moving? The horned dragon's eyes widened as it looked at the smile on Lin's face. A boundless chill suddenly welled up in its heart. No way. He's joking, right? I've heard that this technique is invincible below the return to void stage. I wonder if it's suitable for you. A faint smile appeared on Lin's face as he pointed his finger toward a certain part of the horned dragon's body. Go. Holy F***CK. This doesn't make sense. The horned dragon roared. The purple gold lightning moved, and it instantly pierced through the horned dragon's body with boundless royal might. The horned dragon's pained wails reverberated throughout the sky. Chapter 254. The purple golden lightning was so powerful that it pierced through the dragon's body in the blink of an eye. The destructive might of the lightning wreaked havoc on its body, tearing apart every inch of its skin. Ow! The dragon's anguished wail reverberated throughout heaven and earth. Its body of over 1,000 feet long crashed to the ground, causing the floating boulder to tremble. Blood trickled down from the dragon's mouth. It stared in shock at the handsome male walking toward it. It still couldn't believe that it had been defeated by a cultivator of the spirit-nurturing stage. It was already incredible that Lin could identify the flaws in its attacks. Who would have thought that he could even control the purple golden lightning of the Lord of Lightning? What kind of F***king freak is he? It couldn't believe it. It couldn't understand it. It's only right that you're shocked. The demon king of arrogance also experienced the same thing. And Lin walked up to the horned dragon and looked at its head, which was several dozen times larger than him. I'm going to suck your energy essence dry now. Do you have any last words? The dragon. Why can you control the purple golden lightning? It still hadn't figured out why it had lost. Now, it was finally able to voice out its biggest question. That's right. Even if it was going to die, it had to die with clarity. And Lin replied calmly, because I'm the lightning king of lightning, the Lord of Lightning. The dragon's chest constricted, and it spat out another mouthful of blood. Do you have anything else to say? And Lin asked again. The dragon shook its head. I don't have any attachments in this world. All I'm waiting for is someone who can defeat me. I just didn't think that this person would be so stupid when he really came. And Lin, he didn't say anything else. He pressed his hand against the dragon's gigantic body. A white light flashed, and the dragon's energy essence quickly flowed into his body. He did this because of the system's water cultivation method mission. Stage 1 Divine Liquid Creation Technique. Condition: absorb all the energy essence of a soul formation stage horned dragon. After a year, he finally had the chance to complete this mission. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Su Xiaolan, Dubai, and the clown saw that Lin was sucking the weird stuff again, and they couldn't help but feel nervous. They were afraid that he would go crazy again like last time. Soon, the horned dragon's profound energy was completely absorbed by Lin. Its body turned into a burst of blue light and gradually dissipated. Only a bead with lightning entwined around it floated in the air, emitting bursts of energy fluctuations. After obtaining the divine liquid creation art, Lin's aura completely changed, and a vigorous life force filled his body. He pointed his finger at the void, and in an instant, countless water droplets condensed. These water droplets accumulated and eventually formed the shape of a human. As the blue light shone brightly, another Lin appeared in front of everyone. Su Xiaolan, Dubai, and the clown all widened their eyes as they stared at the two Lin in front of them. These two Lin's appearance, demeanor, aura, all of their characteristics were exactly the same. They were unable to tell the difference, even though they were standing right in front of them. Seeing everyone's dumbstruck expressions, one of Lin chortled with glee. This is my new technique, water clone technique. How is it? Are you shocked? Su Xiaolan covered her mouth with her hand, and a hint of excitement appeared in her eyes. My God, You've mastered such a rare immortal spell? Normally, only returned to void stage mighty figures would be able to use this type of clone technique. And Lin leaned against Dabai with a smug expression. This is only the first stage. If I learn a higher stage cultivation method in the future, not only will I look the same, but my clone will also possess the same combat prowess as my main body. That would be truly badass. An expression of yearning appeared on his face as he spoke. Dabai, the clown, and Su Xiaolan all looked at him enviously. He then completely transformed into a puddle of water, drenching Dabai's entire body. Dabai, haha, you didn't expect this, did you? This is the real me. And Lin, who had remained silent this entire time, suddenly chortled with glee as if his prank had succeeded. Dabai, you're going to lose me as your supreme mount Woof. Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes at the chortling and Lin, but she also heaved a sigh of relief. And Lin's current condition appeared to be quite normal, and he didn't suddenly go crazy like he would after absorbing the fire essence. And Lin turned his gaze toward the dark lightning dragon ball hovering in the air. He held the dragon ball in his hand and sensed the energy within it. This was an extremely pure type of lightning essence power. However, the system didn't give him any notifications about it. He thought about it for a moment before looking at Dabai, the clown, and Su Xiaolan. Who's interested in this dragon ball? This dark lightning dragon ball was not a normal weapon. Instead, it was a special energy carrier, and Lin didn't know how to use it, so he wanted to ask if anyone needed it. Dabai shook his head. I don't get along with lightning by nature. After all, I don't like to flex. The clown also wore an uninterested expression. I've never come into contact with lightning, so it's useless even if you give it to me. Su Xiaolan walked toward Lin and stared at the dark lightning dragon ball with a contemplative expression. How about you give this dragon ball to me? It gives me a very familiar feeling, she suddenly said after a moment of silence. And Lin was dazed. He couldn't help but ask, don't you like to play with fire? Why do you suddenly have feelings for lightning? Su Xiaolan also didn't understand. She shook her head and said, I just feel that this dragon ball seems to have some kind of connection with me. Also, the lightning essence contained within this dragon ball gives me a very familiar feeling. And Lin shrugged and handed the dark lightning dragon ball to Su Xiaolan. He didn't understand these mysterious words. However, since Su Xiaolan liked this dragon ball, then he'd give it to her. After resting on the huge floating rock for a while, they continued toward the next palace. To be honest, when they stood at the entrance of the Palace of Earth, they all felt a lot of pressure. The Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow palaces were the last 4 palaces in the Winter Dragon Tomb. At the same time, they were also the most difficult palaces. At least, this was the case based on the situation of the Palace of Yellow and Palace of Black. The red-haired male from the Palace of Yellow was at the Soul Formation final stage, and Lin only managed to win by a hair's breadth after using all of his trump cards and the power of his beast pets. The Horned Dragon from the Palace of Black was also at the Soul Formation final stage. However, because it possessed the power of the Dragon Tribe's bloodline, its power was even more terrifying than that of the red-haired male, especially after it revealed its true dragon form. Its domineering aura and its ability to summon the myriad lightning supreme purple-gold lightning showed that it was even more powerful than the red-haired male. It could be said that if Lin didn't have a lightning manipulation technique, he would have been blasted into smithereens by the purple-gold lightning a long time ago. If the Tomb Guardian of the Palace of Black was more powerful than the Tomb Guardian of the Palace of Yellow, then it was very likely that the Tomb Guardian of the Palace of Earth was even more powerful than the Horned Dragon from the Palace of Black. Could they defeat an enemy like this? And Lin moistened his slightly parched throat and sent Gundam 1 and Gundam 2, who had already finished charging, to scout ahead. Creak! The door opened. Chapter 255. Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 strode into the Palace of Earth first and looked ahead cautiously without making any unnecessary movements. A silver-haired, middle-aged man with dragon horns on his head sat on the main throne in the palace. He was dressed in a purple dragon robe, and his eyes were calm, yet a little curious as he sized up the people walking into the Palace of Earth. Welcome to the Palace of Earth, all fated ones. A warm and magnetic voice sounded from the man's mouth, giving everyone a sense of comfort. And Lin didn't dare to let his guard down at the sight of this ordinary-looking, yet extremely warm middle-aged man. Who knew if he was faking his friendly demeanor? "Senior, is there anything good in your palace that we can get from there?" Woof. Dabai was well-versed in Lin's teachings and got straight to the point. The middle-aged man chuckled involuntarily. Who would have thought that even a dog would be so interesting among the fated ones? You've almost emptied the winter dragon tomb of all the good stuff on your way here, and you're still not satisfied? Everyone was a little embarrassed upon hearing this. However, I really do have something good here. The man turned to look at everyone with a meaningful expression. However, this item cannot be obtained by force. If you want to obtain it, you have to win its heart. And Lin's eyes lit up. Don't we have to fight? That would be great. Nowadays, people advocate for civilized and harmonious cultivation, and those who use weapons are far too unfriendly. I didn't think that Senior would be so understanding. You really are a kindred spirit. The middle-aged man faltered slightly upon hearing this, but he was in agreement with Lin's idea of civilized and harmonious cultivation, so he nodded and continued. I have an immortal tool here called the Dragon Sparrow Sword. It was the weapon that Shun Ying used when she was still alive, and it can only be gifted to those who are fated with it. This sword has a spirit and is extremely difficult to tame. You could try to communicate with it and see if you can make it accept you as its master. He tossed a long sword into the air as he spoke. Instantly, the entire heaven and earth was filled with sword intent as the roars of dragons and the cries of phoenixes erupted into the heavens. The dragon sparrow sword's blade was snowy white and translucent, appearing holy and flawless. The two sides of its blade were completely different. One side was bright red, like a phoenix bathing in fire, while the other side was dark blue, like the thunder of a true dragon. Such two completely different edges were perfectly matched together, giving people a feeling of harmony and complementation. The dragon sparrow sword hovered in mid-air, emanating a peerless light of white, crimson, and blue. Lin and the others stared at it with wide eyes. Just this design and appearance alone was worth the price of a celestial artifact. The evil-slaying sword and realm-piercing nail were both immortal tools, but from the looks of it, they instantly looked downright pathetic. It had to be said that the temptation of an immortal artifact was very big, especially such a handsome immortal artifact. And Lin had never seen such a thing in his life. Everyone's eyes were burning with eagerness. "Let me train him first, Woof." Dabai volunteered first and strode toward the dragon sparrow sword. The corner of its mouth curled up slightly, and a pair of round, jet-black eyes were filled with affection. It raised its proud and unyielding head and said softly, "Baby, follow me. I'll protect you well and be with you forever. I'll see the most beautiful scenery with you, visit the best brothels, and slay the most ferocious enemies with you. If you want, I can lick you every day, protect you every day, every day." Boom! Before it could finish its sentence, a bolt of lightning crashed toward Dabai, charring it to a crisp. Dabai opened its mouth, and white smoke exhaled from its mouth. Tears welled up in its eyes, and it appeared extremely aggrieved. "Wah, even if you don't like my confession, you don't have to be so violent, Woof." Lightning crackled from the dragon sparrow sword, and it was clearly preparing to unleash a few more strikes. Dabai immediately fled in fear upon seeing this, not daring to provoke this hot-tempered, immortal sword again. Dabai's strategy was a complete failure, and Lin didn't think that Dabai would choose this method to curry favor with the dragon sparrow sword, and he certainly didn't think that Dabai would say something so disgusting and disgusting. Goosebumps appeared all over Lin's body. If the dragon sparrow sword kept talking, and Lin would want to beat it up, let alone strike it. "Let me try." The clown walked toward the dragon sparrow sword with a serious expression. He had a sincere expression on his face as he spoke in a clear voice. "Brother Dragon Sparrow, would you like to conquer the world with me? When I rule over the world, I'll grant you a bountiful life." And Lin and Su Xiaolan shuddered upon hearing this. Where did he learn such a crappy line? The clown continued. This metal staff was once my weapon, but for you, I'm willing to practice my sword. I'm willing to become a monkey sword immortal. He didn't even want his weapon anymore. As expected, the dragon sparrow sword had completely won over the clown's heart. The dragon sparrow sword let out a crisp, ringing sound as wisps of crimson flames appeared in the air. The clown's entire body tensed up, thinking that he was going to suffer the same brutal punishment as Dubai. However, he soon discovered that he was wrong. The crimson flames formed a series of words in the air. They were trying to speak. The clown, and Lin, and Su Xiaolan's eyes all lit up, thinking that they had a chance. Words slowly appeared. Thank you for your kindness, Brother Monkey, but don't call me Brother Dragon Sparrow. I'm a woman. Also, you're too ugly, so you don't fit my standards of beauty. You should just play with your silver staff. The flaming words slowly burned in the air. Everyone was dumbstruck as they stared at the words written on them. Boom! The words, "You're too ugly," were like the most ferocious attack, and the clown was completely dumbstruck. This was a spiritual attack that was even more fearsome than a spell technique. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, and even Dubai, who had just been struck by lightning, all turned to look at the clown with sympathy in their eyes. The flames gradually dissipated. The clown wobbled as he turned around and left. Su Xiaolan was a little concerned at the sight of the clown's ashen expression. And Lin, is the clown going to be all right? And Lin waved his hand. He'll be fine. He needs time to get used to it. Both Dubai and the clown had failed, so it was time for his master to redeem their dignity. From the dragon sparrow sword reply, it was clear that this sword was a fan of good looks. And Lin thought about it for a moment. I'm so handsome, so I'll be a lot more stable this time. With this in mind, a confident smile appeared on his face. Just as he was about to take a step forward, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind, and he stopped in his tracks. No, I can't go up so quickly. According to normal storylines, the person who goes up the fastest is usually the cannon fodder. The main character is usually the last to appear. And Lin turned to Su Xiaolan with a warm smile. Su Xiaolan, ladies first. You go first. Su Xiaolan blinked her clear eyes before nodding. Oh, she didn't think too much of it and walked toward the dragon sparrow sword. And Lin was still full of confidence. This dragon sparrow sword is a female sword, and repels like opposites attract. This is the law of heaven and earth. I'm the most handsome person here, so I'm going to get this dragon sparrow sword no matter what. Su Xiaolan walked toward the hovering dragon sparrow sword and was a little hesitant. She hadn't figured out how to communicate with the dragon sparrow sword yet, so she didn't know what to say. Hello. She greeted him in a clear and melodious voice. Whoosh! The dragon sparrow sword also let out a light ringing, as if it was also greeting her. Su Xiaolan heaved a sigh of relief. It looked like the dragon sparrow sword had a good temper. She couldn't help but extend a finger toward the snowy, translucent blade of the sword. It felt quite nice. It was very smooth, and there was even a hint of coolness to it. Wow, so perverted. You've only greeted me, and you're already groping me, woof. Dubai couldn't help but grumble, and Lin felt like something was amiss. This was because the dragon sparrow sword let out a clear ringing sound as Su Xiaolan stroked it. The sound was extremely joyful. Golden flames suddenly appeared on Su Xiaolan's fingertips. What's going on? My aura has been activated? Su Xiaolan's eyes widened as she stared at the golden flames on her fingertips with incredulity. Why was the dragon sparrow sword able to activate the power within her body? It clearly hadn't accepted her as its master yet. The middle-aged man, sitting on the main seat of the palace, abruptly stood up with an expression of shock on his face. Suddenly, the wind and clouds surged. The dragon sparrow sword soared into the sky with an azure dragon revolving around its blade. The majestic roar of a dragon was like a bolt of divine thunder. The projection of a phoenix danced in the air, releasing a dazzling light. The dragon sparrow sword has awakened. She really has accepted me as its master. The middle-aged man's body trembled with excitement, and Lin was completely dumbstruck. Holy F***CK. The The sword has accepted me as its master just like that. Chapter 256. No, there's something wrong with this plot development. And Lin stared at the dragon sparrow sword in the sky with an expression of disbelief. His heart ached so much that he couldn't breathe. Right at this moment, he came to a realization. He realized a very practical problem, and that was that the same sex didn't necessarily repel each other, and the opposite sex didn't necessarily attract each other. Where did gays come from? Where did lesbians come from? This dragon sparrow sword was a lesbian. This answer instantly crushed him. In the end, was he going to miss out on such a cool sword? Hurry up and release a drop of blood essence, the middle-aged man said to the dazed Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan slit her finger without hesitation, and a dazzling drop of blood essence floated in the air. This drop of blood essence, which contained the bloodline of the divine phoenix, automatically flew toward the dragon sparrow sword and finally fused with it. Whoosh! Another carefree, ringing sound rang out, and the phenomenon between heaven and earth began to dissipate. The dragon sparrow sword descended from the sky and obediently nestled next to Su Xiaolan, emitting a joyful wong 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 sound. The middle-aged man excitedly made his way to Su Xiaolan's side. Who would have thought that the dragon sparrow sword would actually recognize a master? He said with a trembling voice. This is too astonishing, too unbelievable. He knew very well how proud the dragon sparrow sword was, and how difficult it was to tame it. Even if a mighty figure of the return to void stage came, it wouldn't necessarily show any respect. However, such a ferocious and unruly immortal sword actually voluntarily recognized the woman in front of him as its master. My name is Long A.O. May I ask what your name is? The middle-aged man asked excitedly. He didn't want to say his name earlier, because he felt that there was no need to exchange names with these people. In any case, the final outcome would be him leaving in defeat, so there was no point in wasting his breath. However, he never would have thought that the dragon sparrow sword would actually recognize a master. This completely refreshed his worldview, and it also made him curious about the woman in front of him. Oh, my name is Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan nodded. When Lin heard the middle-aged man's name, he was stunned for a moment. Then, he said unwillingly, Senior Long Out Yin, do you have any of the good stuff here? Long A.O. was about to continue talking to Su Xiaolan. At this moment, when he heard Lin's words, he immediately shook his head and said, This little friend, my name is Long A.O., not Long Out Yin. He thought for a moment, and his eyes lit up. But the name Long Out Yin sounds good. I'll call myself Long Out Yin from now on. Senior Long Out Yin, you still haven't told me if there are any other treasures here. And Lin nodded with an expression that was as if it was as expected. Long Out Yin shook his head with a smile. This dragon sparrow sword is the only thing left in the Palace of Earth. It was once Shun Yin's sword. I thought that until the day I died, I wouldn't be able to see her recognize a new master. Who would have thought that I would see the scene that I've always dreamed of? Tears welled up in his eyes, and he sighed with emotion. He paused for a moment before continuing. If you want to obtain Shun Yin's bloodline inheritance and treasures, then go to the Palace of Heaven. However, I hope that Ms. Su Xiaolan will stop here. I don't want to see the dragon sparrow sword become a widow after only a few days of hard work. Su Xiaolan shook her head with a determined expression. I have a feeling that the Palace of Heaven has some kind of connection with me. I have a very strong feeling that if I don't go there, I will regret it for the rest of my life. For some reason, after hearing Su Xiaolan's words, Lin had a stronger feeling that this winter dragon tomb had been opened by Su Xiaolan's family. Long Out Yin's eyes lit up upon hearing Su Xiaolan's reply. What's your relationship with Shunin? Su Xiaolan shook her head. I don't know. I've never heard my family mention her. A hint of disappointment flashed across Long Out Yin's face. And Lin suggested, Senior Long Out Yin, why don't you come with us to the Palace of Heaven? You can protect Su Xiaolan. That way, the dragon sparrow sword won't have to worry about becoming a widow. Long Out Yin, do you really think I'm one of your own? And Lin looked at Long Out Yin with a sincere expression. Am I not? Long Out Yin replied with a serious expression. Which part of me doesn't look like a villain? I'll change. And Lin's eyes lit up. Senior Long Out Yin, please tell us what kind of dangers we will encounter in the Palace of Heaven and what kind of enemies we will be tortured to death by. Long Out Yin, I'm very easy to talk to, but please don't insult my intelligence. To tell you the truth, I actually don't know what kind of enemies there are in the Palace of Heaven. Even we are forbidden from entering that place. All I know is that the inheritance and treasures of Shun Yin's bloodline are all there. And Lin and the others knew that there was nothing they could do. They would only know the exact situation in the Palace of Heaven after going there. Long Out Yin cupped his fists in a salute. I, Long Out Yin, have been trapped here for over 8,000 years because I offended Shun Yin. I had thought that I would never be able to escape. However, you have successfully made the Dragon Sparrow Sword accept me as its master, and I have regained my freedom. I will always remember this kindness. If we meet again in the future, I will do my best to assist you. A towering aura erupted from Long Out Yin's body as he spoke. This was an aura of unparalleled power and confidence. Life has always been filled with helplessness. Everything in the mortal world has turned into nothingness in the blink of an eye. I look on as the winds and clouds move, and I am proud to be free and unfettered. Fellow cultivators, I'll be taking my leave first. If the heavens want to suppress me, I will defy them. The day we meet again will be the day that I, Long Out Yin, become renowned across the entire continent. Long Out Yin was full of heroic spirit as he displayed his majestic and glorious figure to Enlin and the others. Then, he stepped through the air and left. Enlin's lips twitched upon seeing this, and he felt as if tens of thousands of mythological beasts were stamping over his heart. Speaking of which, did this name awaken some sort of attribute in him? Who doesn't know your name? Long Out Yin. You've been renowned across the entire continent for a long time. In any case, Long Out Yin had finally left. Enlin calmed himself down and turned to look at Su Xiaolan, who was playing with the Dragon Sparrow Sword. The Dragon Sparrow Sword flew around Su Xiaolan like a mischievous little girl. Su Xiaolan was burning her with flames, but she was controlling Su Xiaolan's flames in reverse, making the flames dance around the sword like fairies. Sigh, she's beautiful, and her sword is beautiful. What a perfect combination. And Lin shook his head and sighed. He pulled out the evil-slaying sword and looked at the inky black blade. Look at the Dragon Sparrow Sword. It can still play with its master. What about you? F***CK. You can't even develop a spirit. Tell me, what's the difference between you and that ugly, chaotic alloy brick? Both of you are so dark-skinned. Are you two brothers? The evil-slaying sword remained silent in Lin's hand. Sigh, you're a top-notch immortal tool, and even Emperor Ziwei has taken a liking to you. Why are you so disappointing now, Sai Master is too weak? I don't want to talk. A cold voice suddenly sounded in Lin's mind, causing his body to tremble with fear. Wait, where did this voice come from? And Lin looked at the evil-slaying sword in his hand, and an extremely excited speculation surfaced in his mind. Little Xia, is that you? Are you talking? Evil-slaying sword. The inky black, evil-slaying sword remained completely still in Lin's hand. And Lin blinked before continuing, If you don't say anything, I'm going to plunge you into a pile of cow dung to have a good time. F***CK off. A feminine cry exploded in Lin's mind. This cry was quite lethal, and Lin felt as if his mind had been struck by a bolt of lightning. However, he was ecstatic instead of enraged. Ha ha! Look, my sword has developed a spirit as well. And Lin's exclamation drew the attention of Su Xiaolan, Dabai, and Xiao Chou. And Lin tossed the evil-slaying sword into the air. Little Xia, perform a sword dance. The evil-slaying sword flew through the air in a parabola before falling to the ground with a clang right before everyone's eyes. Su Xiaolan and Lin. Chapter 257. Little Xia, give me some face, and Lin pleaded. The evil-slaying sword remained motionless like a piece of scrap metal. And Lin blushed as he glanced at the dumbstruck crowd. F***CK, so awkward. Haha, it's fine. Perhaps your sword is too tired and doesn't want to move. Su Xiaolan immediately offered words of consolation upon seeing Enlin's expression. She didn't know whether Enlin's evil-slaying sword had a sword spirit or not, but she felt that it was best not to continue such an awkward situation. Thus, she took the initiative to defend Enlin. Enlin nodded with disappointment and picked up the evil-slaying sword. He suddenly recalled something. It was a mission from the system. Stage 1 Divine Weapon Origin Energy. Condition: nurture a weapon spirit. His evil-slaying sword clearly had a spirit, and it could even insult its master. Why didn't it indicate mission completion? Xiaolan, I want to ask if my evil-slaying sword can speak counts as nurturing a spirit. Enlin asked in confusion. Su Xiaolan shook her head. Of course not. The nurturing of an immortal sword refers to the fact that the sword's spirit can detach itself from the body of the sword and materialize a body. The fact that the immortal sword can speak only means that the weapon possesses intelligence and is in the spirit condensation stage. Enlin was a little disappointed to hear this. He had heard of countless ways to nurture a spirit in a weapon, but it all differed from sword to sword. Who knew which one this evil-slaying sword was good for? Little Xia, how can I nurture a spirit in your sword? Enlin persisted in his question. The evil-slaying sword remained motionless and didn't respond at all. Enlin, all right, he resigned to his fate. This was a cold and aloof sword. Its stupid master didn't deserve to speak to it. After resting for a while, everyone set off toward the last palace. The most mysterious and terrifying place in the Winter Dragon Tomb, the Palace of Heaven. The first 2 batches of cultivators who entered the Winter Dragon Tomb never made it out again after entering the Palace of Heaven. Enlin stared at the palace that was glowing with a holy white light, and his heart was filled with unease. The light seemed to be telling him all the beauty of the world. It was an irresistible charm. After staring at it for a long time, he would have the urge to rush into the palace to find out what was going on. The Palace of Heaven was extremely huge. It was more than 10 times larger than an ordinary palace. The gigantic floating rock that supported the Palace of Heaven looked like a lifelike dragon's head from above. It faintly exuded a supreme majesty. Same old rules. We'll let the 2 Gundams take the lead. If the enemy is too powerful, we'll run, Enlin instructed. Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 pushed open the door and entered. Enlin and the others followed behind them with tense bodies. Why isn't anyone here? Enlin was startled by the scene before him. The interior decorations of the palace couldn't be considered luxurious. It could only be said to be simple and elegant. There was a faint scent of wood, but it didn't have that domineering air of supremacy. In the center was a pillar of white light that shot into the sky. That was probably the source of the Palace of Heaven's holy light. From the outside, this holy light was extremely alluring. However, from the inside, this holy light gave off a sense of peace and tranquility. Before everyone had a chance to investigate, a figure materialized in front of the pillar of light. Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 suddenly activated the Ion Deprivation Protection Formation. A blue barrier of light enshrouded everyone within. A white streak of light, as sharp as a saber, suddenly swept toward them. Boom! The white streak of light collided with the Ion Deprivation Protection Formation, and energy swept forth in all directions in a frenzy. The blue barrier of light trembled violently for the first time, as if it was on the verge of collapse. This attack caught everyone off guard. Thankfully, Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 were robots, so they were able to react quickly and calmly. Thus, they were able to block this attack. Oh, that's an interesting puppet. Was it created by the Purple Star? An ethereal and distant voice that sounded like the sounds of nature suddenly rang out. The figure in front of the pillar of light descended to the ground. It was a tall and slender woman in a white dress. Enlin turned to look at the woman. Her features were elegant and serene, as if she were a celestial maiden. She had a pair of silver dragon horns on her head, which were so intricate that it was mesmerizing to look at them. Enlin only took one glance before he found himself unable to tear his eyes away. These dragon horns were like the most perfect artwork in this world. They were even more alluring than the woman's exquisitely beautiful face. He felt like he was going to become a horncon if he continued to stare at them. Not only Lin, but even Su Xiaolan, Dabai, and Xiao Chou couldn't help but stare at the pair of dragon horns. They were even fantasizing about whether that pair of flawless dragon horns was the reward for entering the palace of heaven. If they really were dragon horns, they wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. Instead, they felt like it was only natural. Have you seen enough? The woman in the white dress wasn't surprised to see everyone staring at her dragon horns. Instead, she smiled lightly. Yes, Senior. May I ask if the reward for entering the palace of heaven is dragon horns? Lin asked with a respectful expression. That's right. Even though Long Out Yin had said that the reward would be something like Shan Yin's bloodline inheritance or some sort of treasure, and Lin still hoped that the reward would be this pair of dragon horns. That's not it. The woman in the white dress wasn't enraged. Instead, she replied with a smile. It's something that's not inferior to this pair of dragon horns in the slightest. However, in order to obtain it, you'll have to undergo some trials. What trials? Lin asked curiously. The first trial is a trial of combat strength. The woman in the white dress materialized a sword of wind with a warm smile on her face. However, the killing intent emanating from her body was as cold as ice, causing everyone to tremble in fear. Gundam 1, Gundam 2, Lin yelled. Whoosh! The woman in the white dress stepped forward and instantly appeared in front of the two Gundams before slashing down with her wind sword. One of the Gundams had just activated its ionic deprivation protection formation when the woman in the white dress sliced a gaping hole into it. The other Gundam's lightsaber was already slashing toward the woman's waist. It was as fast as lightning, like a flash of light. The woman's slender fingers formed the shape of a dragon's claw as she gripped the air. Crack! An extremely mystical power froze the space around her and stopped the Gundam's light sword in its tracks. She stepped back and slashed her wind sword in even faster speed toward the Gundam in front of her. Then, a scene that left Lin and the others in shock unfolded. It was clearly a sword formed from condensed energy and didn't rely on any divine weapons. However, an ear-piercing screech of metal erupted as the wind sword collided with the Gundam's body. And in Lin's eyes, the seemingly indestructible Gundam was sliced open by the wind sword amid a shower of sparks and sparks. The Gundam flew back as if it had been struck by a heavy blow. The other Gundam pounced toward the woman again. The woman turned around and punched it in the abdomen. Boom! Heaven and earth tremored violently. And Lin saw the space around the Gundam's abdomen begin to warp and crumble. Countless cracks instantly appeared on the Gundam's silver metal armor, and its body flew back like a cannonball. And Lin drew a sharp intake of breath upon seeing this. Even though the woman in the white dress had concealed her aura, only a return to Void stage mighty figure would be able to warp and shatter space. Run! And Lin yelled without any hesitation. Su Xiaolan, Dabai, and Xiao Chou retreated toward the palace gate without any hesitation. However, in the next instant, the woman had already appeared before Xiao Chou and unleashed a fist. The terrifying power behind her fist sent Xiao Chou flying through the air as he threw up a mouthful of blood. She then raised a hand toward Dabai, and Dabai felt as if a gargantuan mountain were crashing down upon him. He felt as if his bones were about to shatter, and his body was completely submerged into the ground. Xiao Chou, Dabai. Lin roared as wings of wind materialized on his back. He was just about to unleash his origin energy of the netherworld to fight to the death. However, the white figure appeared before him in the blink of an eye before unleashing a palm toward his chest. The attack was too fast, and there was no way he could evade it. And Lin's chest caved in from the force of the palm, and his internal organs were pulverized as he threw up a large mouthful of blood. Lin, a familiar yell sounded. Su Xiaolan wielded her dragon sparrow sword and slashed toward the woman in the white dress without any regard for her own safety. The dragon sparrow sword appeared, and the cries of dragons and phoenixes erupted throughout the entire space. A crimson and blue sword projection swept through the air for 100 feet before crashing down upon the woman in the white dress with unparalleled might. Dragon Sparrow. The woman in the white dress expression shifted as a hint of confusion appeared in her bright eyes. Boom! Flames and lightning exploded forth, pulverizing the ground within a radius of 100 feet, and a portion of the entire palace had collapsed as a result. Su Xiaolan didn't even look at the outcome of the battle. She turned toward Enlin in an attempt to escape with him. However, the space before her suddenly shattered, and the woman in the white dress emerged from within before turning towards Su Xiaolan with a scrutinizing expression. "What's your name?" the woman asked in an ethereal and pleasant voice. Su Xiaolan bit down on her lower lip and panted heavily as she stared at the woman in front of her. There was a look of despair on her face. The disparity in power between them was simply too vast. In the face of such power, even escaping was an extravagant hope, she thought to herself for a moment before giving up on resisting. "My name is Su Xiaolan." The woman in the white dress paused momentarily before a graceful smile appeared on her face. "Hello, my name is Shanine." Chapter 258. What? You're saying you're Shanine? Su Xiaolan's eyes widened in shock, and her speech became a little sluggish. Enlin, Xiaoqiu, and Dabai were also staring at the woman in a white dress with dumbstruck expressions. Shanine? What a joke. Wasn't this winter dragon tomb where winged dragon Shanine was buried? If the tomb keeper of the Palace of Heaven was Shanine, then didn't that mean that she had built a tomb for herself and was playing as the tomb keeper? What kind of joke was that? The woman in a white dress nodded with an earnest expression as she replied to Su Xiaolan's question. "I am Shanine, the owner of this dragon tomb." Su Xiaolan, Enlin, Dabai, and Xiaoqiu. The woman in a white dress waved a hand through the air, and a massive healing spell formation appeared to heal everyone's injuries. The rules for this combat prowess trial are that you'll pass if you can last 10 breaths of time against me. From the moment I attacked to the moment I started conversing with Su Xiaolan, a total of 12 seconds had passed. Congratulations on passing the combat prowess trial, the woman who referred to herself as Shun-In said with a smile. Enlin and the others finally heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing this. This Shun-In was a return to Void stage mighty figure. It would be impossible for them to defeat her. Just thinking about the battle that had just taken place gave them a sense of lingering fear. The healing spell formation continued, and Enlin and the others' injuries were significantly alleviated, allowing them to stand up again. The two Gundams also returned to their storage rings and began the arduous process of charging vital stones to automatically heal their injuries. After so many battles, the two puppets had already absorbed tens of thousands of spirit stones. Thankfully, Enlin was a tycoon. Otherwise, his heart would be aching to death. Just as everyone was reluctantly accepting the fact that the woman in a white dress was Shun-In, Shun-In spoke again. She was still talking to Su Xiaolan, and it was clear that she was very interested in Su Xiaolan. "My little friend Su Xiaolan, can I use a spell technique on you?" Su Xiaolan asked cautiously, "What kind of spell?" "A bloodline appraisal spell technique. To tell you the truth, I think you and I are relatives." With K.'s pride, there's no way she would accept a cultivator of the spirit nurturing stage as her master, unless she has a familiar scent on her. Shun-In spoke in an extremely gentle voice, and there was a hint of anticipation in her eyes. Su Xiaolan pondered for a while before nodding in agreement. With Shun-Yin's power, if she wanted to harm her, she wouldn't be able to defend herself even if she used some kind of spell technique. Shun-In taking the initiative to make a request was a sign of respect for her. She was also curious about the connection between her and the Palace of Heaven, so there was really no reason for her to refuse. Enlin, Dabai, and Xiaoqiu's eyes also widened in shock. They had previously speculated that this dragon tomb was owned by Su Xiaolan's family, but who would have thought that even the owner of the tomb, winged dragon Shun-In, would want to confirm this as well. A red glow appeared on Shun-Yin's slender finger, and she gently tapped it towards Su Xiaolan's forehead. Su Xiaolan's eyes were slightly closed, and her eyelashes trembled. There was a hint of nervousness on her petite face. and Lin stared intently at Shun Yin's expression, watching as her expression changed from one of indifference to one of confusion, and then to one of realization. Shun Yin lowered her hand, and the spell technique was completed. There was no earth-shattering commotion, and the entire process was extremely uneventful. Su Xiaolan opened her eyes and looked at the elegant woman before her with a hint of nervousness, but also a hint of anticipation. Shen Yin's eyes lit up, and her expression became even more gentle as she looked at Su Xiaolan. "Child, I know everything. Let me tell you the truth." And Lin, Dabai, and Xiao Chou knew that they had a chance upon hearing Shen Yin's words. Shen Yin continued in a gentle voice. "My sister's son's daughter's 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 son's daughter's 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 son's daughter's daughter is you." Su Xiaolan's mouth gaped open. "Huh?" And Lin, Xiao Chou, and Dabai's expressions all turned to stone. Shen Yin explained again. "In other words, your father's mother's 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 father's mother's sister is me." And Lin, Xiao Chou, and Dabai continued to be petrified. Su Xiaolan's lips trembled. She knew that she and Shun Yin were relatives. But with such a terrifying seniority, how was she supposed to address this relative, Granny? Granny Shun Yin. Su Xiaolan greeted her timidly. Shen Yin's pretty face turned cold. "Call me Big Sister." Su Xiaolan was given a fright, but she had no choice but to comply. Big Sister Shun Yin. After saying that, she began to realize a very serious problem. She called Shun Yin Big Sister? Then why was her mother called Shen Yin? Su Xiaolan, and Lin finally came to his senses upon hearing this. He was extremely shocked by this revelation, and at the same time, he couldn't help but grumble internally. Shen Yin definitely hadn't even seen the son of the daughter 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 of the what's with this sigh? You possess the bloodline of our dragon tribe, and it's the purest direct bloodline. Your mother is most likely the successor of the Vermilion Bird sect, so you possess the bloodline of the Divine Phoenix. Such terrifying bloodline potential. This must be one of the reasons why the Dragon Sparrow sect chose you. Shen Yin nodded emphatically. She then seemed to recall something, and a smile appeared on her face. Looks like this really is fate. When I forged the Dragon Sparrow sword, I wanted to forge a divine weapon that could perfectly combine the powers of the dragon and the phoenix. In the end, the Dragon Sparrow sword was forged, but I wasn't a good match for it. She turned to Su Xiaolan again as she spoke. Who would have thought that it would encounter you after 8,000 years? Perhaps you, who possess the bloodline of the dragon and the phoenix, will be able to unleash the true power of the Dragon Sparrow sword. Fate is too wonderful for words. And Lin lamented. Su Xiaolan stared at the Dragon Sparrow sword in her hand with a dazed expression. That's right, all of this was too much of a coincidence. Was this fate? The Dragon Sparrow sword flew out of her hand and circled around Shen Yin with an expression full of longing and reluctance, as if objecting to her statement that they weren't a good match. Shen Yin caressed the Dragon Sparrow sword with a faint smile on her face. She looked at Su Xiaolan and seemed to have figured something out. The power of your Dragon Tribe bloodline has yet to be awakened, mainly because your Divine Phoenix bloodline was awakened too early, so it suppressed the awakening of the Dragon Tribe bloodline. So be it. Let me help you awaken the power of your Dragon Tribe bloodline, and I'll also give you my inheritance and the treasures I left here. Su Xiaolan was instantly rooted to the spot upon hearing this. And Lin was indignant and raised his hand in protest. Big Sister Shen Yin, shouldn't we first conduct a few rounds of tests to fairly select the candidates? Shen chuckled. There was originally a bloodline test and a heart test, but I've taken a liking to little sister Su Xiaolan, so I'm giving it to her. What? Do you have a problem with that? That's not fair, Woof. Dabai wailed with tears streaming down his face. He had wandered around the graveyard and risked his life for nothing. He refused to accept this. I opened this graveyard, and the treasures are mine. Everything is up to me. Shen raised her chin slightly and looked at everyone with a disdainful expression. Her voice was imbued with a peerless dragon might as she spoke in a cold voice. Lin, Dabai, and Xiaoqiu shuddered. They were speechless. That's right. She was the one who opened this graveyard. So what was wrong with giving the inheritance to a relative? Everyone lowered their heads slightly, bowing their heads to their ancient relatives.